Chapter 38. This king-scaled monstrous tiger must have seen through his brilliance and martial prowess. Sooner or later, he would be extraordinary, which was why it wanted to submit to him. Thinking of this, Du Xiaofu became more and more shamelessly convinced that this king-scaled monstrous tiger must have seen through his brilliance and martial prowess. Thinking of this, Du Xiaofu felt as if his own image had become even greater. Looking at the king-scaled monstrous tiger's hill-like body, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but sigh. It's not that you can't submit to me, but your body is too big. If I bring you back to the stone city, it will definitely cause some trouble. Roar! The king-scaled monstrous tiger seemed to understand Du Xiaofu's words. Its tiger mouth ferociously roared, and with a flap of its wings, its huge body mysteriously began to shrink. Its wings disappeared, and it finally became the size of a kitten. On the king mark on its forehead, there seemed to be a small protruding dot, like a horn that had yet to grow. If one didn't look carefully, it would be very difficult to notice the existence of this small dot. Transformation technique, you actually know how to transform. You're not an ordinary monstrous beast, definitely not an ordinary monstrous beast. Du Xiaofu was shocked speechless. Naturally, he had heard that monstrous beasts with transformation techniques had extraordinary abilities. Once they grew up, even the top human warriors wouldn't be able to match them. Ha ha ha. I've struck gold this time. Looking at the shrinking king-scaled monstrous tiger in front of him and feeling the abundant profound energy in his body, Du Xiaofu's lips curled into a smile. Then, his smile gradually widened, and he couldn't help but laugh loudly. In the Savage Beast mountain range, there were many peaks and steep ridges, and some deep valleys were surrounded by clouds all year round. Bang bang bang! Low sounds of energy colliding rang out in the deep valleys. Dozens of people were in a chaotic battle. It was Zhu Shui, Guoming, Chen Yan, Lin Buguang, Lu Kun, and the others. Their figures were wrapped in profound energy, constantly exchanging blows. Amidst the fierce battle, everyone's profound energy gushed out, and runes surged. As their profound energy collided, low muffled sounds rang out unceasingly, and the withered leaves and rocks on the ground were shattered into dust. Zhu Shui, Guoming, and Lin Buguang were working together to fight against an extremely tall and thin man. The thin man fought against 3 people alone. Even though he was fighting 1 against 3, it was still extremely easy for him. His skinny, chicken claw-like hands continuously tore apart Guoming's sword shadows, pierced through Zhu Shui's palm imprints, and destroyed Lin Buguang's attacks. The skinny man released his powerful aura, suppressing Zhu Shui, Guoming, and Lin Buguang to the point that they could barely breathe. Chen Yan and Lu Kun were fighting not far away. Both of them seemed to be equally matched, and it was difficult to determine the victor for a time. The Profound Underworld sect's Wang Yuan and the remaining disciples of the Profound Underworld sect, the Profound Talisman School, and the Sky Snake sect's youths and the White Leopard hunting group's hunters were engaged in a fierce battle. How can the 3 of you be my match? The skinny man sneered. His claw imprint once again forced Zhu Shui and Guoming to retreat. The fierce attack had already torn a long wound on Guoming's left arm, and blood was dripping. Bastard, what's so great about being in the perfected innate realm? You dare to touch the woman that I fancy? I'm not done with you. Lin Buguang shouted as he condensed a hand imprint in his hand. Runes spread out, and a fist imprint rushed through the air. It was as if Mount Tai was pressing down, and it carried a terrifying oppressive aura as it directly enveloped the skinny man. A hint of fear flashed across the skinny man's face. Although this young man was only in the nirvana realm of the innate realm, his strength made him somewhat fearful. As expected of a disciple from a large sect, he had such a terrifying cultivation strength at such a young age. While he was fearful, just as the fist imprint was about to land, the skinny man's gaze sank. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and relying on his rich experience, his body drifted back like a falling leaf. At the same time, a fierce claw imprint accompanied by a rune landed directly on Lin Buguang's fist imprint. Kacha! The claw imprint landed, and the two collided. The fist imprint and the claw imprint instantly collided. Nether Sun Saber Technique. Lin Buguang shouted, and a huge saber strangely appeared in his hand. He poured his celestial chi into it, and his arms danced rapidly. The huge saber slashed out like a bolt of lightning towards the skinny man. The saber radiance gushed out, and it was incomparably fierce. The skinny man's expression changed. The young man in front of him was actually stronger than he had imagined. The tip of his foot moved, and his body rapidly retreated. At the same time, his celestial chi gushed out and condensed into a claw imprint. His sleeve shook, and he hurriedly blocked the fierce saber. Chi la la. Everything happened in a few breaths. When the skinny man retreated, the claw imprint on his palm broke open, and the fierce saber radiance left a bloody saber mark on the palm in the middle of the claw imprint. As expected, you have some ability. The skinny man licked the blood stain on the palm to the side of his mouth. His gaze surged with coldness, and then he condensed his hand imprint. In just a few breaths' time, his skinny and tall body pounced towards Lin Buguang, and waves of celestial chi continuously surged out. Tiger roar shaking the sky. At the same time when the skinny man pounced towards Lin Buguang, a loud shout was heard, and it instantly reverberated through the valley like muffled thunder. Roar! The loud shout was like a tiger's roar, and thunder rumbled. The sound waves transformed into a terrifying storm-like whirlpool, and then it swept towards Lin Buguang. The large saber in Lin Buguang's hand danced, and waves of saber radiance blocked the terrifying sound waves. However, the terrifying sound waves became more and more fierce, and it shook people's eardrums to the point of piercing pain, and the ground was directly sent flying. Puchi! After retreating more than 10 steps, blood flowed out from the corner of Lin Buguang's mouth, and a dignified expression gushed out from his eyes. Spirit Talisman Transformation, Kill! Zhu Shui, who was shaken back, took the opportunity to appear beside the skinny man. Her bright eyes shot out a bright light and strange hand imprints condensed one after another. An abnormal fluctuation began to violently surge around her body, accompanied by strange runes that spread out, and finally condensed into a living goshawk. Gee! The goshawk let out a shrill cry, and it spread out its wings that were several meters wide. It brought along a small storm-like energy storm as it directly pounced towards the skinny man. You're actually a spirit talisman master, but it's a pity that you're only a 2-star beginner. It's not enough. The skinny man was a little surprised. He waved his hand, and a stream of profound chi surged out. Runes surged, and like a rainbow piercing through the sun, it fiercely collided with the goshawk that seemed like a living creature. Bang! The goshawk's shadow sank, and then it was shattered into pieces. A violent energy explosion resounded. Zhu Shui's delicate body trembled, and then she staggered back. Her delicate face was pale. Jia, so what if you're from the Profound Underworld sect and the Profound Talisman sect? Brats who are still wet behind the ears also dared to barge into the barbaric beast mountain range. It's time to end this, and all the treasures on your bodies are mine. The skinny man sneered. So what if the Profound Underworld sect and the Profound Talisman sect were colossi? This was the barbaric beast mountain range, a small border city. As long as he obtained the treasures on these brats, he would have a stable life for the rest of his life. When the time came, he could just conceal his identity, and no matter how powerful the Profound Underworld sect and the Profound Talisman sect were, they would not be able to find him. Chi! Just as Zhu Shui's delicate body staggered back, the skinny man's figure flashed like lightning. His eyes revealed a cold glint, and a claw in his hand viciously clawed at Zhu Shui. When they saw this scene, Guo Ming and Lin Buguang's expressions changed drastically. However, they had just been forced back, and were unable to provide assistance. They also did not have the strength to do so. The fierce claw grew larger in Zhu Shui's eyes. Her delicate body was still staggered back, and she was unable to dodge. Her eyes could not help but shut weakly. Chi! Just when Lin Buguang, Guo Ming and the others thought that Zhu Shui was doomed under the shocked gazes of the surrounding people, a light golden waterfall suddenly resounded with a sharp sound of breaking through the wind. After that, it fiercely collided with the skinny man's claw. Chi La! The pale golden light was overbearing and ferocious, and it actually forced the skinny man's body back. At the same time, a young man appeared in front of Zhu Shui. He looked to be around 15 or 16 years old, and his somewhat childish face seemed to have more determination than his peers. His eyebrows were thick like swords, and his eyes were clear and bright. This sudden scene caused the crowd to be dumbstruck. Zhu Shui slowly opened her eyes and looked at the back of the figure in front of her. She was stunned for a moment, but soon after, joy gushed out on her delicate face. "Brother Xiaofu." Guoming looked at the young man who had suddenly appeared, and a wild joy immediately surfaced on his face. The young man who had arrived was still wearing his clothes. Who else could it be but Du Xiaofu? Many gazes landed on Du Xiaofu. Back then in the Earth Spirit Gorge, that young man was incomparably overbearing and crushed everything. He had plucked the blood infant spirit mushroom as if there was no one around. How shocking was that? "Brat, it's you." The skinny man regained his senses. He seemed to have found out from Lu Kun that the young man before him was the one who had killed the second and third brothers of his white leopard hunting group. Instantly, killing intent spread out. "You must be Shou Hu. You seem to be looking for me everywhere." Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. His sword-like eyebrows moved slightly, and his clear eyes were as clear as flowing spring water. His expression was calm and indifferent. However, it was this kind of calmness and indifference that caused Shou Hu, who had experienced hundreds of battles, to suddenly feel uneasy. "That's right, I'm looking for you." Pretending to be mysterious in front of demonic beasts, but in front of me, you can go to hell. Shou Hu gave Du Xiaofu a sinister smile. He was looking for this brat. Moreover, the blood infant spirit mushroom was also on this brat's body. As his voice faded, he suddenly stomped his foot on the ground, and a terrifying aura erupted from his skinny body. Like a ferocious tiger descending from the mountain, he waved his hands and two claws tore through the air like a tiger's claws. The sharp sound of wind breaking resounded in front of Du Xiaofu. The terrifying aura suppressed the space, and it was clear that he had used his full strength, wanting to kill Du Xiaofu in one move. "Thank you, Brother Fanla 3333, for tipping me with 10,000 wave-chasing coins. Today's update has been completed. I saw that there are some brothers in the book review section who are still a little confused about the levels of realms and martial techniques. Little you will explain it here. Currently, the realms are divided into the acquired realm, innate realm, pulsating realm, and pulse realm. The innate realm, pulsating realm, and pulse realm, and the pulse realm, and the pulse realm, respectively, are divided into the initial stage, mysterious realm, nirvana realm, and perfection realm. As for martial techniques, there are only the innate realm and the acquired realm, and the initial stage, mysterious realm, nirvana realm, and perfection realm. Roughly speaking, the level of cultivation is determined by the level of cultivation. The innate realm cultivates the innate realm, the pulsating realm cultivates the mobile grade martial techniques, and the pulse realm cultivates the spiritual grade martial techniques. There are some special exceptions, such as our pig trotters. There are 4 types of martial techniques: heaven, earth, mysterious, and yellow. Each type is divided into the initial stage, middle stage, and high stage. Currently, there are only these, and they shouldn't be too complicated. Chapter 39. The perfect Xiantian stage is not weak at all. Seeing Shou Hu pouncing towards him like a ferocious tiger, a strange glint flashed across Du Xiaofu's clear eyes. Neither dodging nor dodging, he formed a series of hand seals, and a faint golden glow immediately spread out from his body. Runes spread and leapt, and a tyrannical and ferocious aura suddenly gushed out like an erupting volcano. Then, he waved his right arm and viciously swung it towards Shou Hu. Walala! Du Xiaofu swung his arm out, and golden runes surged, condensing into a giant golden wing shadow. Then, it viciously swung onto Shou Hu's body. Shou Hu did not dodge at all. This was the toughest collision, a tough confrontation without any fancy moves. Bang bang! Above the golden wing shadow, an incomparably tyrannical and majestic force poured out like a volcanic eruption. After the collision, Du Xiaofu's figure staggered back 2 steps before stabilizing his body. A smile immediately appeared on his resolute face. Just as he had expected, after consuming the blood infant Ganoderma, his body had become even more valiant after being tempered. Furthermore, after breaking through to the mysterious level of the Xiantian realm, his strength had once again increased greatly. Just by relying on his valiant body and his own strength, he was able to occupy an absolute advantage. The cultivation method of the golden-winged rock was indeed terrifying and domineering. Dang dang! Xiaohu's body was continuously shaken back, and with every step he took, the ground would crack. He hurriedly retreated a dozen steps before stabilizing his body. Lifting his head to look at Du Xiaofu, he said in shock, "The mysterious Xiantian stage, how can it be so strong?" Pft! As his voice fell, Xiaohu could not catch his breath. A mouthful of dark red blood spurted out from his mouth, and his gaze became increasingly aghast. "I didn't provoke you, but you wanted to kill me time and time again. Today is the perfect time to settle the score." With a stomp of his foot, Du Xiaofu took the initiative to attack. His figure pounced out like lightning, like a great rock spreading its wings or a goshawk pouncing on its prey. In an instant, he arrived in front of Skinny Tiger. Profound chi surged in his palm as he clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. A shocking aura erupted as he directly punched Skinny Tiger in front of him. Skinny Tiger's expression drastically changed. When he fought with Du Xiaofu earlier, he could feel that this young man was like a terrifying demonic beast. It was as if he was facing a king of demonic beasts that he had never seen before. Skinny Tiger's heart trembled in fear. At this moment, the speed of this young man was beyond his imagination. He was actually so fast. Unable to dodge, the thin tiger's entire body surged with Xian Qi. Runes flashed, and a fist imprint collided in a panic. Bang bang bang! A low muffled sound rang out from the point of collision between the 2 fists. One sound followed another, and a total of 13 sounds rang out. Waves of astonishing energy waves formed a total of 13 layers. Their imposing aura multiplied, and like a shock wave, they fiercely collided with Xiaohu's fist. Kacha, the sound of bones breaking rang out. Skinny Tiger's face turned into the color of a pig's liver. He was in so much pain that his face twisted hideously. His fist was directly shattered, and his bones were broken. The tyrannical power seemed to want to shatter his internal organs. From now on, the White Leopard hunting group will be removed from the barbaric beast mountain range. Du Xiaofu's figure once again appeared in front of Skinny Tiger. He was as fast as lightning and as powerful as thunder. Runes flashed around his body, and a palm imprint shot out. It was like a stormy sea, and it crashed into Skinny Tiger's chest. A power that could topple mountains and overturn seas burst out. Skinny Tiger's pupils shrank. Only now did he realize how terrifying the young man in front of him was. Compared to the young men from the Profound Underworld sect and the Profound Charm School, he was even more terrifying. If he had known earlier, he would not have dared to provoke such a terrifying young man. Poochie! Blood spurted out from Skinny Tiger's mouth. His ribs were continuously broken, and his internal organs were also shattered by the force of gravity. His body was sent flying, and when it landed heavily on the ground, he had already lost his vitality. A complete Xiantian realm expert was killed in such a clean and efficient manner. It was overbearing and powerful. It was unstoppable and terrifying. The surrounding Guoming, Lin Buguang, and the others were already dumbfounded. Witnessing all this with their own eyes, one could imagine the degree of shock in their hearts. At this moment, Lu Kun and the remaining members of the White Leopard hunting group had an extremely ugly expression on their faces. No one would have thought that Skinny Tiger, a complete Xiantian realm expert, would be killed by the young man in such a domineering manner. The corner of Du Xiaofu's mouth curled into a faint smile, and he clenched his fists. He never thought that the mysterious realm would be so much stronger than the initial ascending realm, especially in terms of his body. After consuming the blood infant spirit mushroom, his body had become so powerful. If it wasn't for his powerful body, which allowed him to be unafraid of Skinny Tiger's aura, he wouldn't have been able to kill Skinny Tiger in such a domineering manner. The domineering aura on his body originated from his powerful body. He was as powerful as a demon beast king, and could look down on everything. The great leader is also dead, run. After the White Leopard hunting group's members recovered from their shock, they did not dare to stay any longer and began to run for their lives. Roar! A tiger's roar shook the sky, and a huge king-striped demon tiger appeared. Two of the fastest Xiantian realm experts from the White Leopard hunting group were directly torn to pieces by the huge tiger's claws. Blood splattered all over the ground, causing everyone's heart to palpitate. It's that king-scaled demon tiger. Everyone's eyes trembled, and their bodies trembled. The huge tiger with a wingspan of 200 feet hovered in the air, glaring at them like a tiger watching its prey. Its astonishing aura caused Lin Buguang, Guoming, Zhu Shui, and the others to be frightened. However, after the king-scaled demon tiger tore apart the two Xiantian realm experts from the White Leopard hunting group, it turned around and flew away. It did not attack anyone else, causing everyone to be extremely puzzled. Run! After the other White Leopard hunting group's members trembled, they continued to flee as they watched the king-scaled demon tiger fly away. Du Xiaofu squatted in front of Shou Hu's corpse and searched his body. Finally, he took out a palm-sized bag covered in runes. This is his Qiankuan bag. Everything should be inside it. Zhu Shui arrived in front of Du Xiaofu, her eyes still filled with shock. Qiankuan bag. A smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. It was said that only a spirit talisman master could refine a Qiankuan bag. Inside a small Qiankuan bag, a spirit talisman master could inscribe runes on it, causing it to become a Qiankuan bag that could shrink space. It was said that the more powerful a spirit talisman master was, the more space the Qiankuan bag could shrink, and the more things it could store. Du Xiaofu unceremoniously put the Qiankuan bag into his arms. The Qiankuan bag itself was a treasure, and not something an ordinary person could possess. Du Xiaofu naturally would not let it go. Then, he stood up. Thank you for saving me. Zhu Shui's pearly white teeth lightly parted, the corners of her mouth forming a beautiful arc. There was a different look in her eyes. It's just a coincidence. Du Xiaofu nodded. The king-scaled demon tiger had submitted and followed him, so naturally, it was easy for him to leave the bottomless cliff. He did not expect to meet Zhu Shui and the others again. In any case, he had to deal with the White Leopard hunting group. Therefore, when he was in danger, he naturally took action. Brother Xiaofu. Guoming ran over in surprise. Looking at Du Xiaofu, he happily said, I did not expect you to save us again. It's just a small matter. Are you okay? Du Xiaofu slightly smiled. The injury on Guoming's arm seemed to be not light. Guoming shook his head and glanced at his injured arm. He did not care and said, it's just a small matter. It's not a big deal. After taking some pills and adjusting my breathing for a few days, I'll be fine. So it's you. You're Du Xiaofu, right? Thank you for your help just now. I'm Lin Buguang, a disciple of the Profound Underworld sect. Lin Buguang went up to Du Xiaofu's side. He had seen Du Xiaofu in action before, and also witnessed the shocking scene in the Earth Spirit Gorge. The strength that Du Xiaofu had just displayed had once again shocked him. He had ignored Shen Yan from the Profound Talisman sect, but now, he had taken the initiative to greet him. This already proved that Du Xiaofu had a special place in his heart. I only helped you because you're an acquaintance. Plus, I have a grudge with the White Leopard hunting group. I did not help you on purpose. You don't need to thank me. Du Xiaofu said to Lin Buguang. It's all right. I'm just thanking you for helping junior sister Zhu Shui. As for me, that skinny tiger can't kill me anyway. Why should I thank you? Lin Buguang did not mind Du Xiaofu's words at all. He looked at the way Zhu Shui was looking at Du Xiaofu, and said to Du Xiaofu, don't think that you can snatch junior sister Zhu Shui from me just because you're stronger than me. Let me tell you, I'll fight anyone who tries to snatch junior sister Zhu Shui from me. Du Xiaofu looked at Lin Buguang, somewhat speechless. He then smiled helplessly. Lin Buguang, I'm not your junior sister, and I have nothing to do with you. If you continue to spout nonsense, I won't be polite to you. Zhu Shui's eyes were like water, revealing a bit of coldness. She was so angry that she stomped her feet. How could Lin Buguang talk about her like that? They had nothing to do with each other. At this moment, she didn't know why, but she was especially afraid of how the young man before her would look at her. She couldn't help but secretly look at Du Xiaofu from the corner of her eyes. Lin Buguang didn't get angry when he heard this. He smiled slightly and said to Zhu Shui, "Junior sister Zhu Shui, don't be angry. I won't say anything. I'll listen to you." You. Zhu Shui lowered her eyes and gently pursed her lips. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head slightly and turned to the side, no longer speaking. It seemed that she didn't want to be entangled with Lin Buguang anymore. After these few days of contact, she also knew how to stay away from Lin Buguang. The more she paid attention to him, the more difficult it would be to clean up the situation. Brother Du Xiaofu, thank you for helping. That Lu Kun is also with the White Leopard hunting group. The people of the Sky Snake sect are too hateful. At this moment, Chen Yan had also arrived by Du Xiaofu's side. He was separated from Lu Kun in a fierce battle, and the outcome of the battle couldn't be determined. He looked at Lu Kun from afar, and coldness shot out from his eyes. However, he knew that he couldn't do anything to Lu Kun. What does it have to do with me? Du Xiaofu didn't even look Chen Yan in the eye. Chapter 40. Du Xiaofu looked at Guoming and Zhu Shui and said, "I'll be leaving first. Barbaric Beast Mountain Range is very dangerous, you guys should leave as soon as possible." As soon as he finished speaking, Du Xiaofu turned around and left. Young, Zhu Shui's lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say something. However, in the end, she did not say anything as her eyes flashed with a dazed look. "Kid, who do you think you are? If you fall into my hands in the future." Chen Yan looked at the tall and straight figure and felt extremely uncomfortable. That kid actually did not take him seriously. If there was a chance in the future, he would definitely not let it go. "Let's go." Lu Kun's expression changed. The members of the White Leopard hunting group had either died or fled. He and the other brothers were no longer able to contend against the combined forces of the Profound Underworld sect and Profound Talisman sect. They immediately waved their hands and signaled for everyone to leave. "Where do you think you're going? Let's chase." Chen Yan immediately shouted when he saw this. Lu Kun and the others also had treasures on them. Lu Kun is very strong. We're all injured. Even if we want to deal with that guy, we'll have to wait until we recover. Moreover, although this is the edge of the Barbaric Beast Mountain Range, there are many high-rank monster beasts recently. Let's be careful first. Lin Buguang had no intention of chasing. Although they had the numbers advantage now, it would be difficult to truly deal with Lu Kun. Moreover, he did not want to be used as a tool. Let's find a place to heal first. We'll take revenge for our brothers in the future. Zhu Shui softly said. She, Guoming and the others were all injured, and several of their brothers and sisters were also seriously injured. Moreover, they were in the Barbaric Beast Mountain Range. It was indeed not the time to deal with Lu Kun. In any case, the current Lu Kun was no longer a threat to them. One day, I'll definitely not let that kid go. Guoming gritted his teeth, but could only give up. Since no one had any intention of chasing, Chen Yan could only give up. He could not do anything to Lu Kun alone. However, he felt that it was a pity for the treasures that Lu Kun had picked up. The feathers that fell from the golden winged rock and purple flame demonic phoenix were not ordinary. The mountain peaks were continuous, green and lush. On top of a rock in the forest, the king-scaled demon tiger, which had shrunk to the size of a kitten, was by his side. Du Xiaofu was not worried about being attacked by demon beasts, nor did he have to worry about encountering other dangers. Du Xiaofu took out the Qianquan bag that he had taken from Shouhu and carefully inspected it. He had also heard of Qianquan bags. In the entire Du family, it was said that only first uncle, second uncle and a few others had Qianquan bags on them. It could be said that the number of people who had Qianquan bags could be counted on one hand. It was said that even the cheapest Qianquan bag cost several thousand cultivation coins. It could be seen how expensive it was. An average person would not be able to afford it, and not just anyone could buy it. How do I open this thing? After inspecting the Qianquan bag for a long time, Du Xiaofu encountered a problem. This Qianquan bag was sealed and could not be opened at all. He did not know how to open it either. This made Du Xiaofu feel depressed. The White Leopard hunting group's great captain must have a lot of valuable items on him. Most likely, he would have some martial skills and elixirs. It was a pity that the Qianquan bag could not be opened. Little brother, you can't open this Qianquan bag. Even if you are an expert, you can't. If you forcefully open the Qianquan bag, the items in the Qianquan bag will shatter into pieces. At this moment, a voice was transmitted to Du Xiaofu's ears. It was also at this moment that Du Xiaofu's clear eyes suddenly widened. His body rapidly retreated as he looked at the item in his arms. Suddenly, he trembled in fear. The king-scaled demon tiger beside Du Xiaofu also immediately straightened its ears. Its pupils shrunk as it stared intently at the item in Du Xiaofu's arms. A man and a beast looked at each other and saw a thumb-sized pagoda floating out from Du Xiaofu's arms. It was the pagoda that Du Xiaofu had casually put away in the Du family's martial repository. A while ago, the clothes on his body and the blood essence of the violent stone demon wolf had all turned into ashes. However, only this pagoda and a piece of beast bone were undamaged. As the pagoda floated out, a stream of light suddenly appeared on top of the bronze-colored pagoda. There were faint talisman patterns flickering on it. Finally, the air around the pagoda fluctuated and a smoke-like fluctuation spread out from the pagoda. Finally, it condensed into a rather transparent figure of a youth. This transparent figure looked to be about 12 or 13 years old. Judging from the figure, his body was very thin, extremely thin, extremely thin. His entire body was just skin and bones. However, there were 2 pieces of meat on his cheeks. His eyebrows were inverted and he had triangular eyes. Not only did he have triangular eyes, but he also had a wretched look. A 12 or 13-year-old youth with a tender face that looked extremely wretched. It made people feel uncomfortable no matter how they looked at him. It was hard to imagine how he could have such a face. If one were to use words to describe this transparent youth, only extremely wretched would be able to perfectly describe and interpret this transparent youth. Hello, little brother. Can I get to know you? The transparent youth with a wretched appearance smiled and floated in front of Du Xiaofu. It would have been better if he didn't smile. Once he smiled, his wretched face looked even uglier than crying. Those triangular eyes were already very small and uncoordinated. At this moment, it was impossible to see his eyes. If a normal child saw such a wretched person, the first thing they would do would be to cry. However, this guy was still a youth and he even called Du Xiaofu little brother. What do you want? Don't come over. This youth's appearance was really too wretched. Du Xiaofu couldn't help but take 2 steps back. This guy couldn't have a special hobby and liked molesters, right? Du Xiaofu secretly decided that if this wretched guy dared to have any ideas about him, he would definitely castrate him. However, Du Xiaofu immediately straightened his chest. He was obviously a bit older than this guy, so why should he be afraid of this little guy who was still wet behind the ears? He gathered his courage and asked, "Who are you? Why are you in the small pagoda?" "Little brother, you don't have to be afraid. Please allow me to introduce myself. My surname is Zhen, and my name is Qing Chun." The extremely wretched youth introduced himself. His tone was very old-fashioned and scholarly, but his voice couldn't hide the immaturity and even sounded like a child's voice. Zhen Qing Chun. Du Xiaofu looked at the wretched transparent youth. He really couldn't figure out how he could have such a name. His surname is indeed Zhen. Qing Chun is the Qing Chun of the wine fragrance. This Qing Chun is not the same as Qing Chun. Zhen Qing Chun shook his head as he explained, appearing even more old-fashioned and old-fashioned. However, when paired with his young and tender face, it gave off an awkward feeling. Roar! The king-scaled demon tiger roared at Zhen Qing Chun. It seemed to have also received some shock, and its kitten-like body instantly returned to its original form. The mountain-like tiger body glared at Zhen Qing Chun as a thunderous roar came from its ferocious mouth. A king-scaled demon tiger at the initial pulse spirit stage. It seems to have mutated and is showing signs of returning to its ancestral roots. If properly groomed, it will be a promising talent. Looking at the king-scaled demon tiger, Zhen Qingchuan's illusory face immediately revealed an astonished expression. He waved his hand at the king-scaled demon tiger and said, "Initial pulse spirit stage." Back then, such a level didn't even have the qualifications to become my mount. Hurry and back off. Roar! The king-scaled demon tiger naturally would not listen to Zhen Qingchun. It continued to roar savagely at Zhen Qingchun. However, there was also some wariness in its ferocious eyes. How did you end up in that small tower? Du Xiaofu arrived in front of the king-scaled demon tiger and finally calmed down a little. He indicated for the king-scaled demon tiger to be quiet, but his eyes remained vigilant. This tower is no ordinary object, and I am no ordinary person either. Zhen Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu, the light in his eyes flickering without leaving a trace as he said, "Let me put it this way. My status is very noble and my origins are extraordinary. You should have already seen that I am currently a Yuan spirit. My Yuan spirit proves that I am an expert. However, an accident happened during one of my training sessions, and my Yuan spirit ended up in this small tower. Are you really an expert? Your origins are extraordinary." Du Xiaofu interrupted Zhen Qingchuan's words. His eyes were curiously sizing up the transparent wretched figure. Regarding the Yuan spirit body, Du Xiaofu was from a martial arts family like the Du family, so he knew a little about it. It was said that only those legendary experts were able to condense a Yuan spirit body, which was equivalent to giving people an extra life. However, this kind of method was beyond the imagination of ordinary warriors. Of course, I am an expert. My origins are extraordinary. Zhen Qingchun nodded affirmatively and emphasized in a particularly loud voice. "Look at you, you look like a little kid." Du Xiaofu said. This, Zhen Qingchun was suddenly at a loss for words. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "That's because I had an accident during my training. In fact, I am already several hundred years old. I will be able to recover after I recover." Then, do you have a Tian-level cultivation method? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and asked Zhen Qingchun weakly. Hearing this, Zhen Qingchuan's transparent wretched face suddenly became somewhat stifled. Then, his face suddenly revealed a smile that could frighten children to tears. He said to Du Xiaofu, I do have a Tian-level cultivation method. However, I didn't bring it with me when I went out." Then, do you have any high-grade martial arts? If you don't, some good elixirs or pills will do. Du Xiaofu looked at Zhen Qingchun expectantly, waiting for Zhen Qingchuan's answer. I didn't bring it with me." On Zhen Qingchuan's transparent and wretched face, the smile that he had managed to squeeze out with great difficulty once again stiffened. This was a little different from the conversation he had imagined. In his imagination, he had suddenly appeared, and after a little brat saw him, he would definitely hug the thigh of his illusory soul and beg to become his disciple. At that time, he would then. But the brat in front of him did not play by the rules at all. Instead, he kept asking for benefits, and did not have much interest in him at all. This made him very depressed. Chapter 41. Then why don't you just tell me why you're looking for me? Du Xiaofu's clear eyes were filled with disappointment as he discreetly observed the primordial spirit who claimed to be Zhen Qingchun. He claimed that he had an extraordinary background and was an expert, but he couldn't bring out anything good. This kind of person was most likely a liar. Because you got lucky. Zhen Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and smiled amiably. However, this smile was still as wretched as before as he said, I can see that you only have a grade 2 to grade 3 martial vein. With this level of martial vein, in the future, on the path of cultivation, Zhen Qingchun purposely paused halfway through his words, revealing a look of pity. He then continued to speak to Du Xiaofu, but you don't have to worry or feel inferior. I'm here to save you. As long as you have my guidance, even if you only have a second-level martial vein, I can still help you become an expert. I can help your cultivation progress by leaps and bounds. With my help, you'll be able to stand out among your peers in the future. Then what do I have to do for you? Du Xiaofu once again interrupted Zhen Qingchun. He knew in his heart that there was no such thing as an idiot's lunch in this world. For a stranger to mysteriously offer to help you so much, it definitely wouldn't be for free. As the saying goes, one who is unaccountably solicitous must be hiding evil intentions. Thinking of this, and looking at Zhen Qingchun's vulgar face, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but feel a certain part of his back tighten. Liar, this vulgar guy must be a liar, Du Xiaofu thought to himself. As for the level of his own martial vein, Du Xiaofu didn't care at all. After all, he was currently cultivating the cultivation method of the golden-winged great peng. Well said, well said. Zhen Qingchun was full of smiles. That wretched and transparent face of his was smiling like a blooming chrysanthemum. He said, because I encountered an accident during my cultivation, my primordial spirit needs to rest. Therefore, I need the profound energy in your body and, you want my profound qi? Du Xiaofu was stunned. Then, he looked at Zhen Qingchun seriously. Under his sword-like eyebrows, his clear eyes gradually became somewhat complicated and interesting. That's right, I want your mystical energy and, hula. Before Zhen Qingchun's words could fade, a fist whizzed over and directly smashed onto the illusionary transparent figure, directly shattering the illusionary transparent figure. Brat, what are you doing? The illusory transparent figure shattered and immediately turned into a puff of smoke. Then, it entered the small tower that was floating in the air. A voice sounded out, Brat, you dare to attack me? You have already brought a great disaster upon yourself. You are indeed a liar. You actually dared to trick me. Du Xiaofu stretched out his hand and grabbed the small tower that was floating in the air. Then, he fiercely threw it to the ground. At the same time, he cursed, you still want to get your hands on my Xian Qi? This young master has survived a great calamity and painstakingly cultivated my Xian Qi. How dare you try to trick me? Xian Qi. As a person with crippled meridians, it was not easy for him to cultivate Xian Qi. It could be said that Xian Qi was Du Xiaofu's lifeblood. This Zhen Qingchun actually wanted his Xian Qi from the start. This immediately touched Du Xiaofu's bottom line. Du Xiaofu's sudden attack was actually somewhat nervous. However, when he saw that Zhen Qingchun, who claimed to be a primordial spirit body, was unable to withstand a single blow and immediately hid in the small tower. In addition, he had tried to trick Du Xiaofu with his Xian Qi from the start. This made Du Xiaofu even more certain that this guy was a liar, an absolute liar. Du Xiaofu flipped out. He picked up the small tower that had fallen to the ground and threw it fiercely again. At the same time, he cursed, you still dare to call yourself an expert? You even have an extraordinary background. I will break this thing. Let's see how you will hide. You actually dared to trick me. You are going to hang yourself. You must be tired of living. You still dare to ask for Xian Qi. You really dare to ask for it. Are you coming out or not? Du Xiaofu fiercely threw the small tower several times in a row. However, the small tower was not damaged at all. It was incomparably hard. Brat, you dare to disrespect me. You will definitely regret it. Within the small tower, Zhen Qingchun's voice also became agitated. This was completely different from what he had imagined. He could not remember why this happened. After he woke up, he had calculated the time before coming out. He originally thought that things would develop in the direction he wanted. However, now it seemed that everything was completely different from what he had imagined. This thing is very strange. He had tried everything, even smashing it with rocks. However, the result was that the small tower was not damaged at all. There was not even a trace of it. Zhen Qingchun hid in the small tower and did not come out. However, he continued to threaten and hoot from within the small tower. This made Du Xiaofu unable to do anything. Brat, give up. This is an extraordinary object. It is impervious to fire and water. You will not be able to open it even in your next life. Within the small tower, Zhen Qingchuan's voice laughed complacently. Then, he said fiercely, wait until I recover. I will definitely not let you off. Do you really think that I cannot do anything to you? If you don't come out, then don't come out again. I don't care if you have a primordial spirit body. It is also a strange object. Du Xiaofu suddenly smiled. That smile was obviously malicious. Then, he threw the small tower in his hand beside a rock. Then, he smiled evilly and unbuttoned his pants at the same time. It is said that a virgin's urine can suppress evil. I want to see how long you can hide. Du Xiaofu smiled evilly. Suddenly, a fishy and hot stream of water rushed onto the small tower. Shameless brat. This is a treasure. A treasure that is enough to make countless experts break their heads and bleed for it. You dared to pour urine on it. You will be punished by the heavens. If you dare to do this to me, I will definitely not let you off. Within the small tower, Zhen Qingchuan's voice was filled with rage. However, he did not dare to come out. At dusk, the setting sun shone at an angle. The mountains that were exposed by the clouds seemed to be floating in the air. The mountains were like waves and waves, layer upon layer. The mountains were dark and boundless. The cliffs that looked like they had been carved by knives and axes stood tall and upright. They were all illuminated by the golden setting sun. In a deep valley, it was shockingly quiet and cold. Whoosh! In the deep valley, a woman dressed in orange robes shuttled through the valley. Dark red blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Her face was extremely pale. She looked back from time to time with an extremely serious expression. What a coincidence! Suddenly, a voice appeared in front of the orange-robed figure. A young man walked out with a smile on his face. The girl's body froze. She looked at the young man who suddenly appeared in front of her. Her pale face was filled with shock. It was as if she had seen a ghost. She said in surprise, You didn't die. The former was the girl who wanted to snatch Du Xiaofu's blood infant Ganoderma. She thought that the young man would definitely die if he jumped off the cliff. Now that she suddenly saw him, she was shocked. I have a strong life. I won't die so easily. The latter was Du Xiaofu. He did not expect to meet the girl one day. More importantly, he did not expect to meet her alone. He did not see the raging flame demonic falcon and the others. He looked at the girl and smiled. However, since I didn't die, it means that you are in trouble. You are no match for me. Looking at Du Xiaofu's evil smile, the girl frowned slightly. She pretended to be calm. I know that you are very strong, but the girl in front of him was indeed very strong. However, it was different now. Du Xiaofu did not believe that this girl could be stronger than the king-scaled demonic tiger. He smiled at the girl and said, Look behind you. When the young girl heard this, she turned her head back to take a look. Suddenly, her expression changed greatly, and her beautiful face turned pale. Roar! The king-scaled demonic tiger appeared in front of the girl. It was as tall as a small mountain. Its roar was like thunder. You brought the king-scaled demonic tiger here. The girl was shocked. Looking at the reaction of the king-scaled demonic tiger and Du Xiaofu, she knew that the king-scaled demonic tiger was brought here by this young man. She did not forget that she wanted to snatch the blood infant Ganoderma from this young man. I said that if you want to snatch my blood infant Ganoderma, I will snatch you back and make you my servant. Du Xiaofu smiled. It turned out that this girl was also afraid. She also had a weak side. However, if he did not take revenge, he would not be a gentleman. Humph. The girl coldly snorted and looked sideways at the king-scaled demon tiger behind her. Her slender figure suddenly jumped out and pounced on Du Xiaofu. At the same time, she stretched out her right hand and an invisible qi gushed out from her palm. To catch bandits, first catch the leader. She could only deal with the boy in front of her first. She knew that she was no match for the king-scaled demon tiger. When he felt the pressure caused by the invisible force, Du Xiaofu's eyes immediately raised. Light talismans surged around his body as he waved his hand and blasted out a palm strike that carried a fluctuation that was like a tempestuous wave. Suddenly, a violent energy wave appeared in front of him. It violently swept out and finally collided with the girl's palm. Bang! The two palms collided, directly scraping off a layer of grass in the dense forest. A large patch of shrubs was also cut in half. Then, the girl's delicate body flew out in a straight line. She spat out dark red blood from her mouth and finally landed heavily on the ground. Roar! The king-scaled demonic tiger roared. Its tiger paw was like a huge rock falling from the sky towards the girl. If it landed, her graceful body would be directly turned into meat paste. Little tiger, stop! Du Xiaofu loudly shouted. He felt that something was wrong. This girl's strength should be stronger than his. However, she was not his match just now. It was obvious that this girl was injured. Her injuries were not light. When the king-scaled demonic tiger heard this, it immediately retracted its paw. Du Xiaofu came to the girl's side. The girl's eyes were powerlessly closed. She had actually fainted. At night, in the quiet dense forest, a bright white moon hung high in the sky. It projected mottled moonlight in the dense forest. Her injuries are not light. The claw mark on her back should be caused by a demonic beast. Du Xiaofu looked at the girl in front of him who was unconscious on the rock. He discovered that there was a wound on her back that was left by a demonic beast. The wound was not deep, but it was not light either. It was somewhat serious. Chapter 42. After hesitating for a moment, Du Xiaofu picked up the young girl and laid her down on the rock. He took off some of her clothes from the back and took out some healing medicine from his bosom to sprinkle on her wounds. These medicines had all come from the white leopard hunting group. As Yao hunters, they would always carry some healing medicine with them. Thus, Du Xiaofu had kept some for emergency use. Who would have thought that he would end up using them on this woman? Originally, he had wanted to take revenge on this woman for robbing him, but who would have thought that this woman would actually faint? This left Du Xiaofu at a loss for what to do. If he didn't do anything about it, it wouldn't be long before she became food for passing monsters. If this thing were to run into adventurers or Yao hunters, it would probably be even worse. Such a beautiful woman, it was easy to imagine what would happen between those big men who often entered the mountain range of savage beasts and hadn't touched a woman for several months. Looking at the skin of the young girl's back that was as white as jade, Du Xiaofu thought to himself as he applied medicine to her wounds. A kind-hearted and upright gentleman like himself was definitely hard to find in this world. Why is there another wound? Just as Du Xiaofu finished treating the wound on the girl's back, he suddenly noticed that there were some bloodstains on the girl's slender thighs. The bloodstains overflowed from the shorts that tightly wrapped around her round buttocks, and the leather shorts that tightly wrapped around her round buttocks were also soaked. It was obvious that the wound was not shallow, and it was on her buttocks. A good person should see this to the end. Du Xiaofu felt that he was very noble. Not only did he not ignore this woman, he even helped her apply medicine to her wounds. After furrowing his brows, he took out a dagger that he had also plundered from the white leopard hunting group. He very enthusiastically cut a palm-sized hole in the leather shorts of her perky buttocks, almost revealing half of her firm skin. It had an indescribable beauty to it, very seductive. For some reason, seeing that seductive curve, Du Xiaofu's heart trembled. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart, but then he saw the 2 finger-sized bloody holes on her perky buttocks. Only then did he come back to his senses, and began to gently rub the healing medicine on the bloody holes. However, Du Xiaofu's gaze was still involuntarily sweeping over her smooth, firm, and perky buttocks, especially the beautiful arc formed by her perky buttocks and beautiful legs. Intentionally or unintentionally, he looked at it, and his heart felt like it was about to burst into flames. Finally, after applying the healing medicine, Du Xiaofu put away the medicine bottle. Only then did he realize that the wound was only the size of 2 fingers, but now he had applied the healing medicine all over her firm, and perky buttocks the size of a palm. It's safer this way, it's better for the wound. Du Xiaofu said to himself in his heart. It was naturally better to apply more medicine, and he was also being kind. Looking at the perky buttocks that he had applied the healing medicine all over, Du Xiaofu finally couldn't help but mutter softly, however, it's very firm, and very smooth. Why am I having a nosebleed? Just as Du Xiaofu's gaze was still lingering on her perky buttocks and slender legs, he wanted to check if there were any wounds on the other half of her buttocks and thighs. Suddenly, he discovered that a stream of blood flowed out from his nostrils, and he had no choice but to give up on the thought in his heart. Finally, Du Xiaofu took out a clean long gown from the small bag on his body, and covered the woman's injured buttocks with it. The long gown was also plundered from the people of the confession hunting group. In order to prevent himself from wearing leaves and vines again, Du Xiaofu specially brought a set of clothes, and now he was using it on this woman. After tidying up, Du Xiaofu looked at the young woman in front of him, and smiled evilly. He groped the young woman's body once, and then retreated to the side to rest. Early in the morning, there was silence. In the air, a white fog shrouded the dense forest, and it was faintly discernible, drifting in and out of existence, creating a somewhat mysterious atmosphere. Little thief, what did you do? I'm going to kill you. A sharp and delicate voice echoed in the silent dense forest. It was unknown when the woman had woken up, but her beautiful face paled as she touched her perky buttocks. Then, she pounced towards Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes slightly closed, but she seemed to be somewhat powerless. Du Xiaofu seemed to have been prepared, and his body immediately retreated, and at the same time shouted, "Miss, your wounds are exposed." Hearing this, the woman immediately stopped. Only then did she realize that in her excitement, her wounds were exposed, and that indescribable part of her body was exposed. Roar! The king-scaled demon tiger suddenly appeared, and after Du Xiaofu jumped on it, the king-scaled demon tiger flapped its wings and flew away. Not to mention that the woman did not have the strength to chase, she simply did not have the time to do so. She wanted to take out a set of clothes from the Qianquan bag in her arms to change, but found that her Qianquan bag had disappeared without a trace, and some of her miscellaneous items had also disappeared. Little thief, don't let me see you again. If I see you again, I swear that I will tear you into pieces. A delicate voice came from the dense forest. This woman really changes her face at will, as expected, she is not cut out to be a maid. The next time I encounter something like this, I must not meddle in other people's business. In the air, Du Xiaofu heard the delicate voice behind him, and his whole body trembled. In his hand was a Qianquan bag, and with a smile on his face, he softly muttered, "Fortunately, I didn't lose out, but the feeling is really not bad." The verdant mountains overlapped, like the undulating waves of the sea, surging violently, majestic and magnificent. Ao ao. The roars of beasts reverberated through the forest, and the thunderous roars of beasts resounded, causing the air to become a lot more tense. In the dense forest, there was a steep mountain, and at this moment, several young boys and girls were clustered together. Most of their faces were pale, and there was panic between their brows. Each and every one of them was tightly holding onto the weapons in their hands, and their eyes were vigilantly looking at the dozen or so lightning demonic leopards around them. This group of young boys and girls were all around the age of 17 or 19, and the leader was a young girl. She had fair skin and a delicate face. Although she was not old, she had already grown into a slender and elegant woman. The young girl's face was solemn, and her gaze was fixed on the lightning demonic leopards around them. Although the dozen or so lightning demonic leopards had not reached the innate realm, the leading lightning demonic leopard had definitely stepped into the innate realm, and it would be difficult for the few of them to deal with it. Zijin, what should we do now? The elder is separated from us, and we can't deal with these lightning demonic leopards at all. There are too many of them. A young boy who was slightly older than the young girl said to the young girl, and his expression was extremely solemn and nervous. We can only give it a try, and hope that the elder can rush over in time to rescue us. The young girl's delicate face revealed a fierce aura, and she wore a tight skirt, which added a bit of charm and mature temperament to her, and outlined her exquisite and curvy figure, which was extremely attractive. Looking at the leading lightning demonic leopard, she said, "Leave the leading lightning demonic leopard to me, and you guys deal with the rest." Ayo ayo. Just as the young girl's voice fell, the dozen or so lightning demonic leopards once again launched an attack. The reason why lightning demonic leopards were called lightning demonic leopards was because their speed was as fast as lightning. Fight! Several young boys rushed out together, and immediately brandished their weapons to fight with the lightning demonic leopards. However, their cultivation did not seem to have reached the innate realm, and it was very difficult for them to face the attacks of the lightning demonic leopards. The young girl waved her hand, and a long whip with countless hooks swept out. Profound chi surged, and the long whip was like lightning, piercing through the barrier of the air, and directly swept towards the leading lightning demonic leopard. Ayo! The lightning demonic leopard's speed was faster than the young girl's, and a bloody and violent aura burst out from its body. It dodged the young girl's whip, and with a ferocious look in its eyes, it pounced towards the young girl, and its hook-like claws suddenly appeared in front of the young girl. In a flash, the young girl also exploded with a shocking explosive power. The tip of her foot touched the ground, and the aura of the early innate realm swept out. The long whip in her hand was like a snake, and it quickly wrapped around the lightning demonic leopard. The lightning demonic leopard's eyes were ferocious, and the light around its body surged. Its body, which was the size of a small elephant, once again dodged the young girl's whip. The long whip was like lightning, and it heavily landed on a rock, causing the rock to shatter into pieces, and gravel shot out. The young girl's delicate body was still retreating, and the long whip in her hand took advantage of the momentum to spin, and like a dragon soaring into the sky, it violently swept out. She had attacked several times in a flash, and it was enough to show that the young girl was not ordinary. Ayo! The lightning demonic leopard roared, and it was a little angry after being blocked several times. Its sharp claws actually directly grabbed the long whip, and it actually tightly grasped the long whip under the leopard's claws. The sharp barbs could smash rocks, but at this time, it was actually unable to hurt the lightning demonic leopard. Instead, it was directly grabbed by the lightning demonic leopard. Dang dang! A huge force attacked. The young girl did not seem to have expected the lightning demonic leopard's strength to be so great. With a mistake, her delicate body was directly pulled forward, and her delicate face turned pale. She had no choice but to immediately let go of the long whip in her hand. Ayo! The lightning demonic leopard seized the opportunity, opened its ferocious mouth, and pounced towards the young girl like lightning. Its lightning-like speed, coupled with its ferocious aura, arrived in front of the young girl in an instant, and its bloody mouth was filled with the smell of blood. The young girl was, after all, a woman. Although she had the cultivation of the innate realm, and was definitely one of the top existences among her peers, but under such an unforeseen event, her beautiful face turned pale, and her delicate body's speed was greatly affected. Bang! A young man appeared in front of the young girl like lightning. Profound chi surged, and he directly punched towards the lightning demonic leopard's jaw. A low muffled sound rang out, and the lightning demonic leopard that was pouncing towards the young girl was directly sent flying onto a huge rock, and the rock was shattered into dust. Ayo! The lightning demonic leopard let out a mournful roar, and a large amount of beast blood spurted out from its mouth from the punch. Just as it was about to flip over and struggle to get up, the young man once again appeared in front of it, and with an unbelievable speed, his fist fiercely smashed into the lightning demonic leopard's forehead. Chapter 43. Bang! The lightning leopard's head exploded and red and white matter gushed out. Its body immediately withered. Roar! A tiger's roar came from the dense forest not far away. The tiger's roar was so loud that it made countless ferocious beasts in the surrounding mountains go into hibernation. Ferocious birds spread their wings and soared into the air. Roar! After their leader was killed, the lightning leopards heard the tiger's roar and trembled in fear. They didn't dare to stay in the slightest. After killing the lightning leopard, the young man didn't even turn his head. He carried the lightning leopard's body on his shoulder and left. He didn't pay any attention to the girl and the other young men. Who is that? I think I've seen him somewhere before. Looking at the young man who was carrying the corpse of the lightning demon leopard, a few pale-faced youths were shocked and puzzled. The young man's age was about the same as theirs, and he was even younger than them. However, his strength was so terrifying that he could kill a Sciention realm lightning demon leopard with just 2 punches. It's him. The girl was surprised. The one who had killed the lightning leopard was actually Du Xiaofu, the rumored idiot of the young master of the Du family. However, judging from Du Xiaofu's actions, how could he be an idiot? Zijin, that guy looks familiar. A young man who was slightly older than the girl came forward and looked at the back of the young man who was leaving. He was shocked. Du Xiaofu from the Du family. We met him in the Du family. The girl called Zijin said to the young man. Du Xiaofu? Isn't that the idiot of the Du family? Why is he alone in the mountain range of savage beasts? Hearing this, the young man was surprised. The name Du Xiaofu was extremely famous in Stone City. The girl looked at the back of the young man in the distance and said, if he's really an idiot, then we can't even be considered as idiots. Second Master, we've been out for so long. Even though we've gained something, we haven't gained much. I heard that someone saw the purple flame demonic phoenix attack. Someone even picked up a feather from the purple flame demonic phoenix. Could it be that something happened to the purple flame demonic phoenix? Within the continuous dense forest, over 30 figures were shuttling through the forest. All of them were vigilantly observing their surroundings. A young man of 25 or 26 years of age was speaking to a sturdy middle-aged man who was leading the group. Even if something happens to an existence like the purple flame demonic phoenix, we won't be able to get involved. Be careful. Opportunities are precious, but our lives are more important. We've gained quite a lot this time. This trip was worth it. The burly man raised his head from time to time to look around. Suddenly, his expression changed as he stared ahead and said, "Be careful, someone is coming." Everyone's eyes were on alert. A figure appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was a young man carrying a huge demonic beast. His figure was tall and straight, and behind him was a wild cat. He was standing in front of everyone, sizing them up. "Little tiger, without my orders, don't reveal your identity. Restrain your qi," Du Xiaofu said to the king's scaled demonic tiger behind him. He was carrying the lightning leopard's corpse on his shoulder. Second Master, that person looks familiar. Many people were slightly surprised. That young man's silhouette looked extremely familiar from afar. Xiaofu, that's Xiaofu. The burly man was staring ahead. Suddenly, a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. He immediately started running. The burly man was the second son of the Du clan, Du Zhixiong. Because the mountain range of savage beasts had not been peaceful for a while, he had personally led a group of people into the mountain range of savage beasts. He didn't expect that he would run into Du Xiaofu, who he had been looking for all this time. Xiaofu, Du Xiaofu, didn't he go missing? Why is he in the savage beast mountain range? The crowd looked at each other in dismay when they heard Du Xiaofu's words. Du Zhixiong quickly ran to Du Xiaofu's side. He looked at Du Xiaofu in front of him with a smile on his face. It was as if a huge stone had been lifted from his heart. He said, "Xiaofu, is it really you? Everyone has been looking for you. Your uncle has been worried about you every day. It's good that you are fine." Second uncle. Looking at the burly man in front of him, Du Xiaofu's heart was filled with warmth. He smiled and didn't know what to say. It had been 10 years since he had last talked to his second uncle. However, in his heart, he knew that his second uncle had always cared about him. His second uncle had never despised him for being a fool. His second uncle only felt pity and heartache. How ferocious! This is a Xiantian-level demonic lightning leopard. A group of people from the Du family gathered around. When they saw Du Xiaofu carrying the corpse of the demonic lightning leopard, they were all shocked. Silly boy, what are you laughing at? It's good that you are fine. Quickly put down the corpse of the demonic lightning leopard, Du Zhixiong said to Du Xiaofu. Immediately after, he looked at the corpse of the demonic lightning leopard and revealed a puzzled expression. Come, help me carry it. A few people from the Du family immediately stepped forward and helped to put down the corpse of the demonic lightning leopard from Du Xiaofu's shoulders. Quick, be careful of the blood of the demonic lightning leopard. Quickly collect it. When the time comes, we can refine the blood essence and use it to forge the body of the younger generation. It is extremely good. Be careful of the claws of the demonic lightning leopard. They are extremely valuable. Xiaofu, did you kill this demonic lightning leopard? The people from the Du family gathered around and started to deal with the corpse of the demonic lightning leopard. There were also people who looked at Du Xiaofu with a shocked expression. If Du Xiaofu was the one who killed the Xiantian-level demonic lightning leopard, then how powerful would Du Xiaofu be now? As for the people from the Du family present, naturally, no one would think that Du Xiaofu was still the foolish young master of the Du family. During the competition between the younger generation of the Du family, Du Hao, Du Chong and the other two couldn't even withstand a single blow from him. Who would believe that Du Xiaofu was still the foolish young master of the Du family? Looking at the people from the Du family who were all talking at once, Du Xiaofu's heart was once again filled with warmth. All these years in the Du family, everyone had treated him as invisible. However, at least there were still some people who had always treated him as a part of the Du family. For example, this group of people who were truly fighting for the Du family. I didn't kill it. I was just passing by and didn't know who killed the demonic lightning leopard. I thought that the corpse of the demonic lightning leopard was worth a lot, so I planned to carry it back. Who knows, I might be able to buy some cultivation coins. Du Xiaofu smiled and replied to the crowd. In fact, he had originally planned to roast the demonic lightning leopard. Cultivating the cultivation method of the golden-winged rock allowed one to extract energy from the flesh of demonic beasts for one's own use. Although the energy contained within the bloody flesh was the densest and purest, Du Xiaofu didn't dare to eat it raw. He could only eat the cooked flesh of demonic beasts to extract the energy for his own use. However, he didn't expect to meet his second uncle and the people from the Du family here. How can there be such luck? The corpse of the demonic lightning leopard is worth a lot. After conversion, it's worth at least 1,000 gold coins. If we can capture one alive, then it would be even more valuable. Hearing that the corpse of the demonic lightning leopard was picked up, no one doubted Du Xiaofu. Killing a demonic lightning leopard at the Xiantian realm required a lot of strength. Among the people here, other than the second master, the others would probably need to work together to do it. Du Xiaofu smiled as he looked at the group of people from the Du family handling the corpse of the demonic lightning leopard. They were extremely familiar with the process. Not to mention that he was the one who killed the demonic lightning leopard, Du Xiaofu didn't want to explain too much. He then raised his head and asked Du Zhixiong, "Second uncle, how is my father?" "Your father is still the same." A bitter smile appeared on Du Zhixiong's face. He patted Du Xiaofu's shoulder and said, "Let's go back early. Your father should be worried about you." A few days later, at dusk, when the sunset faded, the sky and earth turned into a silvery gray color. Outside the stone city, the savage beast mountain range was shrouded in a golden silence. In the distance, the mountains were covered in the sunset glow, and the sky was filled with bright red clouds. Outside the gate of the Du family, a group of 10 people came back. This time, their harvest was not light. They brought back a lot of spiritual herbs and demonic beasts' blood essence for the younger generation of the Du family. It was enough to nurture the younger generation of the Du family for a period of time. The second master is back. Isn't that Du Xiaofu? Why did he come back with the second master? Why did Du Xiaofu bring back a wild cat? Outside the gate of the Du family, many Du family disciples had already rushed out to welcome them. Looking at the harvest that the second master of the Du family had brought back, their eyes were filled with joy. And seeing Du Xiaofu in the crowd, it also attracted many complicated gazes. Ignoring the various complicated gazes, Du Xiaofu directly returned to the courtyard where he lived. When Du Xiaofu stepped into the courtyard, his drunkard father was drinking. Sitting in the courtyard, holding the wine jug and drinking directly. There was no food to go with the wine. He quietly drank alone. Goo goo. This was the unique sound of his drunkard father drinking. Other people drank mouthful by mouthful, but Du Xiaofu knew that his drunkard father drank in big mouthfuls. Seeing Du Xiaofu come back, he only raised his head, put down the wine jug and said, "You're back." "I'm back." Du Xiaofu said, then added, "Drink less wine, I'll go get you some food to go with the wine." "Okay, accompany me to drink a few mouthfuls later," he said calmly. Du Xiaofu was slightly surprised, then nodded and left the courtyard. Usually, he would accompany his drunkard father to drink, but it was always on the 15th day of the 8th lunar month every year. When he was young, Du Xiaofu did not know what the 15th day of the 8th lunar month was. Later on, he found out that the 15th day of the 8th lunar month was the day when the family reunited, called the Mid-Autumn Festival. Every year on this day, his drunkard father would drag him to drink a few mouthfuls of wine. When Du Xiaofu left, Du Tingshuan's eyes, which were emitting the smell of alcohol, glanced at the king's scaled demon tiger that Du Xiaofu brought back. For some reason, that gaze made the king's scaled demon tiger tremble for no reason, and its shrunken body involuntarily took a few steps back. Chapter 44. By the time Du Xiaofu brought a few dishes from the kitchen, night had already fallen. The bright moon hung high in the sky, and the moonlight was like a net. Even though it wasn't the 15th of August, the moonlight was still very bright today. The father and son sat down, looking at each other in silence. Du Tingxian reeked of alcohol. He raised his head and drank a mouthful of wine. Then, he passed the wine flask to Du Xiaofu and asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. I just went to the Savage Beast mountain range to take a look." Du Xiaofu knew that his drunkard father was asking about his disappearance. What he told his second uncle was that he had secretly entered the Savage Beast mountain range to train himself. He didn't tell his second uncle about the beautiful woman in plain clothes, in case he implicated Bai. Du Xiaofu also didn't tell his second uncle about the golden-winged rock and the purple-flame demonic phoenix, in case he caused trouble for himself. If that happened, he wouldn't know how to explain it. Du Xiaofu took the wine flask and drank a mouthful. Then, he passed it back to his drunkard father. Since he was young, he had accompanied his drunkard father to drink. He even secretly drank when he was young, so his alcohol tolerance was actually quite good. "Oh." Du Tingxian only said one sentence softly. Then, he took the wine flask and drank another mouthful. After that, he didn't say anything else. Du Xiaofu had long been used to the way the father and son interacted. Then, the father and son took turns to drink. Tonight, they seemed to have drunk more than usual. Until Du Xiaofu felt a little dizzy, he laid down in the courtyard and fell asleep. In the morning, when Du Xiaofu woke up and rubbed his sleepy eyes, he realized that his surroundings were pitch black. "Am I in the ancestral hall's stone coffin again?" Du Xiaofu got up and pushed open the stone lid of the stone coffin. He was indeed in the ancestral hall's stone coffin again. His entire body was drenched in sweat, and there were some impurities on it. His body felt as if it had been cleansed again. "Young Master Xiaofu, the head of the family wants to see you in the study." When he came out of the ancestral hall and returned to the courtyard, his drunkard father was no longer in the courtyard. After taking a bath and changing into his favorite purple robe, Du Xiaofu met the front supervisor who had come at some point in time. Everyone in the Du family called him Uncle Lin. He was an old man in his 60s. He was a person who was highly regarded by his eldest uncle and had a high status in the Du and said that his eldest uncle wanted to see him. Du Xiaofu nodded. Yesterday, second uncle had mentioned that eldest uncle wanted to see him. Who would have thought that eldest uncle would send someone to look for him so early in the morning? Then, he thought of something. Looking at the old man in front of him, he asked, "Uncle Lin, how is Du Hai's ability?" The old man was surprised at first, then smiled and said, "If young Master Xiaofu hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten. Du Hai is the supervisor of the backyard, but recently his ability has been getting worse and worse. I was just about to punish him." "Uncle Lin, you are someone who is highly regarded by first uncle, and also someone who is highly regarded by the Du clan. The Du clan will have to trouble you to take care of them. As for those unqualified members of the Du clan, they must not be tolerated." Finished speaking, Du Xiaofu smiled and left. Looking at Du Xiaofu's back, a slight smile appeared on the old man's face. He said, "It seems like this young master is going to use his blade. Who said that this young master is stupid? How can the child of the third master be stupid? It's time for some of the servants of the Du family to be moved." Du Xiaofu went to the study. It was his eldest uncle's study. Du Xiaofu knew that his eldest uncle did not ask him to go to the main hall, but to the study. Because his eldest uncle had never looked down on him, there were not many people who could enter his eldest uncle's study. Even the children of the Du family were not many. "Xiaofu, let your eldest uncle take a look." When Du Xiaofu pushed open the half-closed door of the study, a big man in his 40s raised his head and happily welcomed him. "Eldest uncle." Du Xiaofu bowed. The big man in front of him was his eldest uncle, Du Jinwu, a famous figure in the entire Stone City. "I heard about what happened to you. It's good that you are fine. Next time, don't go to the Savage Beast Mountain Range alone." Du Jinwu patted Du Xiaofu's shoulder and pulled him into the study. His face was tense, but his eyes were filled with kindness. Then, he said, "I heard that you can already cultivate. Is that true?" "Yes, I can cultivate." Du Xiaofu nodded. There was nothing to hide. After all, everyone in the Du family knew about it. "It's good that you have recovered. It's good that you have recovered. God bless my Du family. God pity my nephew, Xiaofu." Du Jinwu was very excited as he looked at Du Xiaofu with a happy smile. After a long time, his expression became a little more serious as he said to Du Xiaofu, "In a month, it will be the Stone City's 5 Great Families competition for the younger generation that is held once every 3 years. If you can become the champion, in addition to the great benefits that the winner will receive, even the entire family will receive a lot of benefits. Prepare well, the Du family will need you at that time." "Yes." Du Xiaofu nodded. He had heard about the triennial gathering of the 5 major families before. After chatting with his first uncle for a while, Du Xiaofu bid farewell and left. As for the questions that his first uncle asked, he naturally answered them perfunctorily. He had always said that he wanted to temper himself in the Savage Beast Mountain Range, which was why he went in. After watching Du Xiaofu leave, Du Jinwu looked outside the study. The joy on his face gradually disappeared and was replaced with a trace of seriousness. He said, "I hope that there won't be any unforeseen events in the triennial gathering of the 5 major families." Behind the martial scripture tower, in the spacious courtyard, Fu Bai squatted on the ground and looked at the ants crawling on the ground. He looked very serious, but he didn't dare to raise his head. Du Xiaofu stood behind Fu Bai and then turned in front of him. Although he told his second uncle and first uncle that he took the initiative to enter the Savage Beast Mountain Range and didn't want to implicate Fu Bai, it didn't mean that it didn't happen. At the very least, he had to ask Fu Bai what was going on. Fu Bai turned his back to Du Xiaofu and continued to look at the ants in front of him. Du Xiaofu was infuriated. He squatted in front of Fu Bai and said, "Old Bai, you have to give me an explanation, right?" "What explanation?" Fu Bai looked at Du Xiaofu with a blank expression. His eyes looked very innocent. "Don't play dumb with me. What's the matter with that beautiful woman?" Do you know that I was almost killed by you this time? The more Du Xiaofu spoke, the angrier and more agitated he became. He had been completely implicated by this old fellow. He had narrowly escaped death and almost died. Who would have thought that this old fellow would actually refuse to admit it now? Fu Bai looked at Du Xiaofu and ignored Du Xiaofu's agitated expression. He said, "Then, are you dead now?" Du Xiaofu was stunned and gritted his teeth. "No." "Then, are you missing an arm or a leg?" Fu Bai continued to ask. Du Xiaofu continued to grit his teeth and replied, "No." "Then that's it." Fu Bai looked at Du Xiaofu with disdain and said, "She might look cold, but in fact, she wouldn't randomly kill people. You, on the other hand, missed a great opportunity. How many people in this world want to be her disciple? If you find a chance to pester her, she might take you in as a disciple. When that happens, your name will shake the world. It's much better than staying in this small Du clan. I truly feel pity for you." Du Xiaofu was stunned. After hearing Fu Bai's words, it seemed like he owed Fu Bai a great favor. "Fu Bai, stop right there." Just as Du Xiaofu was stunned, Fu Bai had already disappeared from his original spot. A moment later, at the back of the Du clan's mountain, smoke was rising. Du Xiaofu and Fu Bai were eating the barbecued meat and wolfing it down. However, no matter how Du Xiaofu asked Fu Bai about the relationship between the plain-clothed woman and her identity, Fu Bai didn't answer. In the end, Du Xiaofu had many questions in his heart, but he could only keep them to himself. Take good care of the things on your body and don't throw them away. Whether you can comprehend them yourself will depend on your own abilities. After eating his fill, Du Xiaofu was burping when Fu Bai suddenly said something baffling to Du Xiaofu. He then said, "I'm full, I'm going back to take an afternoon nap." Du Xiaofu was stunned again. When he regained his senses, Fu Bai's figure had already disappeared. "Du Xiaofu, you are finally back." In the afternoon, Du Xiaofu planned to return from the back of the mountain. Just as he reached the backyard's entrance, he was blocked by a group of people. Du Xiaofu raised his head and saw familiar faces. The grandson of the great elder, Du Hao, was among them. There were also Du Chong and Du Yan. The rest were also Du clan's disciples. Looking at these people, Du Xiaofu's eyes slightly moved before revealing a smile. "Are you guys here to deliver elixirs and mystic coins? It seems like you guys haven't forgotten that you still owe me 10 years of elixirs and mystic coins." "Oh, you my ass. Quickly return our foundation building elixirs and the explosive stone fiend wolf's essence blood. Otherwise, we won't be polite." Du Hao was furious. A treasure like the explosive stone fiend wolf's essence blood was actually snatched away. How could he swallow the resentment in his heart? Back then, his father went to find the patriarch, but encountered Du Xiaofu's bizarre disappearance. In the end, he could only leave the matter unsettled. When they heard that Du Xiaofu had returned yesterday evening, they gathered all the people who suffered losses with them to settle the score with Du Xiaofu. They didn't expect to meet him in the backyard. Du Xiaofu, quickly hand over the foundation building elixirs and the explosive stone fiend wolf's essence blood. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. Du Chong and Du Yan also loudly shouted. For more than a month, they simply didn't have the face to see anyone. All three of their prizes were snatched away by Du Xiaofu alone. Now, the uncles of the Du clan clearly looked at them differently. They didn't even dare to go out. The news that the three of them couldn't even take a single move from Du Xiaofu had already spread to all the major clans. The Tong clan, Qing clan, Qin clan, Bai clan and other clans, when they saw them, they couldn't help but make fun of them. Now, the whole city knew about it. Brothers who haven't collected this book yet, click on the Add to Bookshelf button below the cover of this book. Chapter 45. Hand over the blood essence of the violent stone demon wolf and the foundation establishment pill, or else I'll teach you a lesson. The surrounding youths and girls were also glaring angrily at Du Xiaofu. They were also victims at that time. You're Du Xiaofu, that idiot. A young man who looked to be in his early 20s walked forward. He was dressed in silver armor. His slender figure and good looks made him look even more handsome and heroic under the contrast of the silver armor. A few young girls clustered around him, intentionally or unintentionally, with infatuated looks in their eyes. Du Xiaofu had already noticed this young man long ago. Hearing his words, his expression immediately turned ugly. He said to the armored young man, "You're the idiot, your whole family are idiots. You're indeed a little arrogant, daring to insult an imperial knight. Just this alone is enough to send you to the imperial prison for the rest of your life." The young man's expression immediately darkened. As an imperial knight, everyone in this small border city had to give him some face. He didn't expect that someone would dare to insult him today. If he didn't teach this Du Xiaofu a lesson, he wouldn't be able to back down in front of the infatuated girls around him. Du Xiaofu didn't even pay attention to the young man. He glanced at Du Hao and the others and said, "Is this what you're relying on? I'll give you one last chance. Will you voluntarily hand over the debt you owe me, or should I take it myself?" Du Xiaofu, don't be so arrogant. My cousin is an imperial knight, you're dead meat. Du Hao clenched his teeth and sneered at Du Xiaofu. He then raised his head to look at the armored young man and said, "Cousin, we can't let this Du Xiaofu go. We have to take back the blood essence of the violent stone demon wolf and the Foundation establishment pill." "No problem, this idiot is looking for trouble." The young man's expression darkened. As soon as he finished speaking, the profound energy in his body surged. A powerful aura burst out, forcing Du Hao, Du Chong, Du Yan and the others to retreat. The energy in his body surged, as if it had gathered into a small tornado. Initial breakthrough to the Xiantian realm. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows slightly. This imperial knight youth was indeed quite talented. It was already quite extraordinary for him to be able to step into the Xiantian realm at such a young age. "Today, I'll teach you a good lesson, you fool." The armored youth didn't intend to hold back. He took a step forward and condensed a hand seal. Green chi condensed on the palm seal, as if there was a layer of green energy crystal on the palm seal. Accompanied by a powerful aura, it enveloped Du Xiaofu. From Du Hao and the others, he knew that Du Xiaofu had defeated Du Hao and the others in one move. Therefore, although he had reached the Xiantian stage, he didn't go all out, but he didn't hold back either. The palm print moved and arrived in front of Du Xiaofu in a flash. In a split second, a faint golden light flickered in everyone's eyes. Before the surrounding crowd could clearly see what the faint golden light was, a muffled sound was suddenly emitted. Bang! Along with the muffled sound, strong winds swept out from the surroundings, causing rocks to shoot into the sky. Subsequently, a figure was directly blasted flying before heavily falling to the ground. Bang! In an instant, the ground began to crack, and the entire ground began to shake. At this moment, the figure slowly came to a stop. Everyone looked over and instantly inhaled a breath of cold air. It turned out that the figure that was blasted flying was actually the armored youth. A Xiantian realm cultivator, an existence that everyone envied and looked up to, had actually been trampled on with a single move. Pfft! The armored youth fell to the ground and spat out a large mouthful of blood. His handsome face was ghastly pale while astonishment surged out from his eyes. Bang! 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 Everyone hadn't recovered from their shock when a low muffled sound of energy resounded once more. After that, numerous figures were incessantly blasted away by the chain reaction. After that, without any surprise, all of them fell to the ground and were unable to move. Du Xiaofu's purple robe's long sleeve shook as he looked at the ground with a satisfied smile. After that, he unceremoniously took away all the medicinal pills, profound coins, and some valuable trinkets on their bodies. Even the armored youth was not spared. There were quite a few items on the bodies of a dozen people. In the end, Du Xiaofu directly took off the robe on Du Hao's body and wrapped it into a small bundle before taking everything away. During this process, no one dared to resist, nor did they have the strength to resist. You're welcome to continue finding trouble with me in the future. After taking care of everything, Du Xiaofu threw down a sentence before swaggering off. Gazing at Du Xiaofu's departing figure, the surroundings were completely silent. At night, the curtain of night covered the stone city. The moonlight was like a stream as the stars twinkled in the sky. In a simple and unadorned stone pavilion, a young lady stood quietly. She had fair skin, an exquisite face, long hair that poured down, a long skirt that covered her body, and a pair of bright eyes that flickered with a bright light under the moonlight, causing her elegant temperament to have an additional chilly temperament. Zijin, have you really made up your mind? A thin middle-aged man looked at the young lady and said, "You must know that this decision is not only related to our Yi family, but also the entire stone city." The young lady raised her head, her vermilion lips gently parted as she said, "I believe that within this generation of the 5 great families, no one can compare to Du Xiaofu. Even I cannot." The thin middle-aged man's face was slightly surprised as he said, "I never thought that this girl would actually have such an evaluation of Du Xiaofu from the Du family. I also want to meet him. How about this, accompany me to the Du family tomorrow to express our gratitude. At the same time, there are some matters that need to be decided." And the young lady faintly smiled as she nodded her head. She could not help but recall the back figure that carried the lightning demonic leopard's corpse. It was so tall and straight. How exactly do I open this thing? In the room at night, Du Xiaofu held 2 Qianquan bags in his hands. One was looted from the body of the White Leopard hunting group's leader, Shouhu, while the other was looted from the body of the tight-fitting girl. However, even though he had the Qianquan bag, Du Xiaofu could not open it at all. "Kid, you can't open the Qianquan bag. How about I open it for you?" Zhen Qingquan's voice sounded from the small pagoda in Du Xiaofu's bosom. For some reason, his voice sounded somewhat sullen. "You know how to open the Qianquan bag?" Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment before taking out the small pagoda in his bosom. Of course, the small pagoda was currently wrapped in several layers of leaves. Du Xiaofu did not want to directly put the small pagoda that had been soaked in child's urine into his bosom. What a joke! I am a spirit talisman master, a very high-level one. A small Qianquan bag is naturally not a problem for me. Zhen Qingquan's sullen voice from the small pagoda finally revealed a bit of pride. "You are a spirit talisman master?" Du Xiaofu looked at the small pagoda suspiciously, then said, "All right, help me open the Qianquan bag and give it a try." "Humph, what's in it for me to help you open the Qianquan bag?" Zhen Qingchun said from the small pagoda. His tone was somewhat complacent. This kid finally had a favor to ask of him. "If you help me open the Qianquan bag, I will no longer use the child's urine to suppress evil. If you can't open the Qianquan bag, I will directly throw this broken pagoda into the latrine." Du Xiaofu said indifferently. "Kid, you dare!" Zhen Qingquan's voice suddenly screamed from the small pagoda. "Guess if I dare or not." Du Xiaofu replied. "Kid, you win. I will help you open the Qianquan bag. But let's make a deal. When I come out, you are not allowed to do anything to my primordial spirit." Zhen Qingchun compromised. He knew that this kid would definitely do it. "Deal." Du Xiaofu nodded in agreement. Zhen Qingquan's illusory figure floated out from the small pagoda. He looked at Du Xiaofu, his wretched eyes containing anger and sullenness. The corner of his mouth twitched as he suppressed his anger and said, "If you forcibly open the Qianquan bag, the things inside will be directly destroyed. Apart from the person who created it, the only way to open it is to find a spirit talisman master who is more powerful than the one who created this Qianquan bag to decipher the runes." As his voice faded, Zhen Qingquan's illusory hand seals condensed. Then, the 2 Qianquan bags in Du Xiaofu's left hand were wrapped by a strange force and floated into Zhen Qingquan's hands. Walala! As Zhen Qingquan's illusory hand seals changed, waves of mysterious runes suddenly spread out. The room shone brightly, and waves of mysterious power rippled in the room. Under the envelopment of the mysterious runes, Zhen Qingquan's wretched appearance suddenly became imposing. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was somewhat convinced that Zhen Qingchun was not a swindler. It was indeed difficult for a swindler to create such a grand display and imposing manner. Open it. Drip your blood on these 2 trash Qianquan bags to bind them to you. Then, inject your profound qi. From now on, these 2 Qianquan bags are yours. A moment later, Zhen Qingchun threw the 2 Qianquan bags in front of Du Xiaofu. His illusory figure became even more illusory. Chapter 46. According to Zhen Qingchun, Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment. He had also heard that some spiritual weapons and Qianquan bags required blood to recognize their owners. Therefore, he did not hesitate and bit his index finger to drip blood on the 2 Qianquan bags. After that, he injected his celestial qi into the Qianquan bags. Immediately, the Qianquan bags opened and a large pile of items was rummaged out by Du Xiaofu. These are Xiantian level demon beast materials. These are Xiantian level demon beast blood essences. There are indeed elixirs and martial arts techniques. There are also quite a lot of celestial coins. The items in that woman's Qianquan bag are much lesser, but the quality is much higher. This martial arts technique seems to be at least at the animal grade level. A pile of valuable items was placed in front of Du Xiaofu, causing a satisfied smile to appear on Du Xiaofu's face. In the Qianquan bag of the White Leopard hunting group's leader, Shouhu, there were many demon beast materials and blood essences. There were also many elixirs and a set of Xiantian martial arts technique. It could be said that most of the wealth of the entire White Leopard hunting group was in this Qianquan bag. There weren't many things in the Qianquan pouch of the tight-fitting young girl, but there were a few sets of women's clothes, and even a lot of common rouge and powder. What surprised Du Xiaofu was that there were a few pills of decent quality, and there were quite a few profound coins as well. There was also a martial arts technique that was at least at the animal grade level. The value of a martial arts technique at the animal grade level was already a terrifying figure, not to mention that there were many elixirs in it. The total value was probably much higher than the Qianquan bag on Shouhu's body. Looking at the satisfied smile on Du Xiaofu's face, Zhen Qingchun could not help but sigh in disdain. How can a pile of trash be so happy? You really haven't seen the world. Take out something good if you have the ability. Du Xiaofu raised his head and glanced at Zhen Qingchun. Then, he happily organized the pile of valuable items and kept them in his Qianquan bag. You, Zhen Qingchun choked on Du Xiaofu's words. Then, he suppressed the grievance in his heart and said to Du Xiaofu, "Kid, I have already proven that I am a talisman master. I am definitely not a swindler. How about we make a deal?" Du Xiaofu raised his head, looked at Zhen Qingchun and asked, "You might be a talisman master. Do you need my Xian Qi for the deal you want to make with me? If that is the case, I advise you to never have any ideas about it. Whoever dares to touch my profound energy, I will fight with my life on the line." Ugh, Zhen Qingchun was speechless again. He felt that he and the kid in front of him were not on the same frequency. He took a deep breath, squeezed out a smile on his wretched face, and said, "Kid, don't be afraid. I don't want all of your Xian Qi. I just want to absorb a little bit each time. This will not have any effect on you. Wait until my soul is a little stronger, then I will be able to leave this small pagoda and find a way to recover on my own." Du Xiaofu raised his head and rolled his eyes. He sneered and did not say anything. He continued to organize his valuable items and thought about how to exchange them for Xian coins. "Kid, do you want to become strong? I can make you strong and become a powerhouse whose name can shake the world." Zhen Qingchun was unyielding and continued to tempt him. He felt that no one could resist temptation. How could this little brat resist temptation? Every human had a weakness, and every human would always be tempted. He said, "Do you want money, beautiful women, status, and power? If you had this ability, how could you be like this now? Do you think I would believe you?" Du Xiaofu finally finished packing up the 2 Qianquan bags. He stood up and looked at Zhen Qingchun, who was unyielding and unyielding. Zhen Qingchun was almost choked to death by this sentence. His face was flushed red. He wanted to go crazy. He wanted to fiercely teach this kid who did not know what was good for him a lesson. However, in his current state, he simply could not do it. Kid, do you want to become a talisman master? After being sullen, Jin Qingchun once again threw out a tempting topic to Du Xiaofu. He was sure that no matter who it was, they would be moved by this sentence. A talisman master was a profession that would absolutely make people burn with passion. Do you want to be suppressed by a virgin's urine again? However, the result was once again beyond Jin Qingchun's expectations. Du Xiaofu did not have much reaction to the words, talisman master. He directly glared at Jin Qingchun. It was not that Du Xiaofu did not know the status of a talisman master on this continent. On the contrary, Du Xiaofu also wanted to become a talisman master. It was rumored that those terrifying talisman masters were even more terrifying than the strong warriors. However, after discovering that Du Xiaofu had a waste martial vein, the Du family had asked someone to investigate his constitution. The result was that besides the waste martial vein, he had no potential to become a talisman master. Therefore, when he heard Jin Qingchun ask him whether he wanted to become a talisman master, Du Xiaofu did not have any thoughts at all. Since he could not become a talisman master, and now he was practicing the cultivation method of the golden-winged rock, why would he want to become a talisman master? Boy, you really don't want to become a talisman master? Jin Qingchun was sullen again. He did not expect that this boy did not even care about becoming a talisman master. This was absolutely abnormal. This boy was definitely stupid. I have already checked. I have no potential to become a talisman master. You'd better save your saliva. Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at Jin Qingchun. He made up his mind that no matter what Jin Qingchun said, he would not be swayed. Jin Qingchun's goal could not be his Xian Qi. Who said that you can't become a talisman master? That bastard said so. Jin Qingchun loudly scolded, appearing extremely excited. He said, the person who helped you check must be a bastard. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's eyes suddenly lit up. He looked at Jin Qingchun and said, so, I have the potential to become a talisman master? It's more than just ordinary potential. Jin Qingchun raised his head, his eyes shining. He looked at Du Xiaofu and asked, do you know what it takes to become a talisman master? Extraordinary spiritual power and spiritual root. Du Xiaofu replied. He had heard of these when he was young. There were very few people who could become warriors, and those who could become a talisman master were 1 in 10,000. Yes, to become a talisman master, you need extraordinary spiritual power and spiritual root. Both are indispensable. Your spiritual root is poor, even worse than your current martial vein. Jin Qingchun said bluntly. Then why did you say that I can become a talisman master? Du Xiaofu raised his eyes. You don't know shit. Jin Qingchun rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu and said, your spiritual root is poor, but you have spiritual power that ordinary people can't compare to. It can be said that at your age, you are in the top 3 in terms of spiritual power that I have seen. I really don't know where you get such strong spiritual power. I do have some extraordinary aspects. You have a good eye. Du Xiaofu smiled and didn't feel embarrassed at all. Then he asked Jin Qingchun, what does this have to do with becoming a talisman master? Jin Qingchun rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu and said, of course it has something to do with it. Because spiritual power is an innate advantage, it is difficult to improve it. However, there is a way to improve the spiritual root, and it can even be improved to a very strong level. As far as I know, there is no way to improve the spiritual root. Du Xiaofu was not stupid. Even if he hadn't eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. The spiritual root of a talisman master was the same as the martial vein of a martial artist. There was no way to improve it. Even if he encountered a great opportunity and took those heavenly treasures that could strengthen the martial vein and spiritual root, it wouldn't improve too much. Others can't, but I can. Looking at Du Xiaofu, Jin Qingchun's expression became serious. As long as you listen to me and worship me as your teacher, I can make you a talisman master. Worship you as my teacher? Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at Jin Qingchun, and then said, you can find another disciple. I am not interested. I just want to become a martial artist. I don't have the energy to bite off more than I can chew. Jin Qingchun was stunned. He was flabbergasted. Then, he scolded Du Xiaofu, "Brat, do you know that if I said I wanted to take a disciple in those years, I don't know how many spirit talisman masters in this world would have kowtowed until their heads were broken and bleeding, begging me to take them in. I heard that talisman masters are divided into 1-star talisman masters, 2-star talisman masters, 3-star talisman masters, and 4-star talisman masters. I once heard from my uncle that a long time ago, he had seen a 5-star talisman master. I don't know what level of talisman master you are." Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and asked. "It is not convenient to tell you my identity for the time being, so as not to distract you from your practice. It will also bring you unnecessary trouble. I can tell you that a 5-star talisman master is just a fart in my heyday," Jin Qingchun said confidently. Du Xiaofu's mouth twitched, looking at Jin Qingchun's confident expression. A 5-star talisman master was already a famous expert in the empire. Even the emperor of the empire would have to personally greet such an expert. But in Jin Qingchun's eyes, a 5-star talisman master was just a fart. If this spread out, he would be ridiculed by countless people as a lunatic. Du Xiaofu also didn't believe it. Looking at Jin Qingchun's wretched face, he didn't look older than himself. He didn't look like a peerless expert. "Boy, do you want to be my apprentice or not?" Jin Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and asked, the corners of his eyes twitching. He really didn't expect that one day he would be reduced to the point of asking someone to be his apprentice. Could it be that a talisman master was worthless today? No. Although I have some interest in becoming a talisman master, I don't believe you. Du Xiaofu directly refused. "Why don't you believe me? I have already proved that I am a talisman master." Jin Qingchun was about to collapse. "Because you look too wretched. You look like a liar," Du Xiaofu said very seriously. Chapter 47. What do I have to do to make you believe me? Jin Qingchun was about to break down. What kind of world was this? He actually asked someone to take him as his master. Could it be that this was a punishment from the heavens? Also, where did he look wretched? At most, he just looked a little unique. "Unless you let me become a talisman master first, I won't believe you," Du Xiaofu said. "Humph, you're a good schemer. If you don't want to be my apprentice, why should I teach you?" Jin Qingchun didn't want to do it. He knew that this kid was more shrewd than a thief. If he didn't want to be his apprentice and wanted him to teach him, this kid would definitely not admit it. Therefore, he must not be led by the nose by this kid. He didn't believe that he couldn't even deal with a kid now. Du Xiaofu shrugged, looked at Jin Qingchun and said, "If you want me to be your apprentice, you have to show some sincerity. What if I'm fooled?" Jin Qingchun was very aggrieved, really aggrieved. Taking a deep breath, Jin Qingchun suppressed his anger and said, "Okay, I'll let you become a spiritual talisman master first, but you have to promise me one condition. My primordial spirit is too weak now, so you have to give me some Xian Qi. Don't worry, it won't do you any harm. You'll recover after a night of breathing and adjusting your breath. Otherwise, I won't have the strength to teach you to become a spiritual talisman master. You can find someone else to teach you." Du Xiaofu hesitated. When it came to Xian Qi, he really didn't believe in Jin Qingchun. But to be honest, Du Xiaofu really wanted to become a talisman master. He pondered and hesitated for a moment. "Okay, I promise you." Du Xiaofu compromised. At this time, he could only gamble once. After all, he really wanted to become a talisman master. "Humph." Jin Qingchun coldly snorted and stared hatefully at Du Xiaofu. He felt that he was at a disadvantage today. As the saying goes, the older the ginger, the spicier, but today he didn't have the slightest advantage at all. He felt like he had played with an eagle all his life, but in the end, he was bitten by a bird. Just as Jin Qingchun said, he really only needed Du Xiaofu's Xian Qi. Under Zhen Qingquan's instructions, Du Xiaofu directly poured his profound energy into the small pagoda. Then, the small pagoda flickered with a dazzling light, and an ancient aura spread out. Du Xiaofu was surprised. He remembered that he had tried to inject Xian Qi into the small tower last time, but at that time, the small tower didn't have the slightest reaction. When Du Xiaofu felt that the Xian Qi in his body was exhausted, Zhen Qingquan, who had entered the small tower again, spoke to Du Xiaofu. He said, "Kid, the Xian Qi in your body is much purer and more abundant than I thought. It's about time. If you continue to consume it, it will be harmful to your future cultivation. Wait 3 days for me to recover. After 3 days, I will teach you to become a talisman master. During these 3 days, you should also prepare some materials. Remember, don't let anyone know of my existence, including your closest family members." Then, Zhen Qingquan gave Du Xiaofu a long list of names of spirit herbs. Many of them were names that Du Xiaofu had never heard of before. Quite a bit of Xian Qi had been taken away by Zhen Qingquan, and Du Xiaofu urgently needed to breathe and recover. After memorizing the list, he sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate the golden rocks cultivation method to recover. The next morning, under the shadow of the morning sun, in the morning fog array, Stone City was awakened. Outside the Du family, it was bustling with noise and excitement. Stone City's city lord, Yi Baolin, brought his beloved daughter to visit the Du family. He said that he wanted to thank the Du family's young master, Du Xiaofu, for saving his beloved daughter, Yi Zijin, in the Misty Mountains. When the news spread, it immediately spread throughout Stone City. As a citizen of Stone City, there was absolutely no one who didn't know about the Yi family. When it came to the 5 great families of Stone City, no matter how much competition there was between the other families, no one thought that there was a family that could be stronger than the Yi family. Even the Du family, who had been in the limelight recently, was no exception. The reason was that the Yi family had been in control of Stone City for 5 generations. Stone City's city lord had been a member of the Yi family for 5 consecutive generations. Just this point alone was enough to explain everything. The Yi family had always been the unshakable #1 family among the 5 great families. It was said that there was only a month left until the competition between the 5 great families' younger generation that occurred once every 3 years. At this time, the city lord personally went to the Du family to visit a junior of the Du family. This caused some people to have some thoughts. In the morning, when Du Xiaofu withdrew his hand seal and stopped breathing, he already felt that there was someone outside the courtyard. Du Xiaofu walked out of the courtyard and saw a clever young man dressed as a servant. The young man was extremely polite and respectful to Du Xiaofu. When they met, he introduced himself. He said that the head steward of the backyard, Du Hai, had been severely punished by the head steward of the front yard because of his incompetence and embezzlement. At the same time, he would be the head steward of the backyard and would listen to Du Xiaofu's arrangements at any time. Du Xiaofu nodded. He had also seen this person before. He was the son of an old servant of the Du family. He had lived in the Du family since he was young, but he didn't have much of an impression of him. However, regarding Uncle Lin's efficiency and use of people, he secretly sighed in his heart. He was indeed worthy of being an old member of the Du family. Uncle Lin was also a very important person. He arranged for an ordinary person to be the head steward of the backyard because of him. From this young man, Du Xiaofu found out about the city lord's visit. After asking about the general reason, he couldn't help but frown. His drunkard father wasn't in the room. After washing up, Du Xiaofu could only go to the main hall. When Du Xiaofu arrived at the main hall, there were already many people sitting in the spacious hall. In the seats of honor, Du Xiaofu saw Uncle Du Zhenwu and second Uncle Du Zhixiong. There were also a few members of the Du family that were rarely seen. These elders of the Du family rarely showed themselves, but their status was very high. Sometimes, it was even not below the patriarch. Below Uncle Du and the others, there were many elders sitting with them. There were also many outstanding members of the younger generation of the Du family. Du Yu and Du Shui were among them. However, Du Xiaofu didn't see Du Hao, Du Yan, and the others. They were probably too heavily injured yesterday and couldn't see anyone today. Otherwise, they would naturally attend such an important occasion. When Du Xiaofu stepped into the main hall, he immediately felt a lot of unkind gazes. It seemed that many elders of the Du family were gnashing their teeth and looking at him, but they could only hold it in. On the other side of the main hall, Du Xiaofu saw many unfamiliar people. In the front, there was a heroic middle-aged man in his 40s. He was wearing a long robe and had a smile on his face. He looked very talkative and had a kind of imposing temperament. He has a very strong strength. This was Du Xiaofu's impression of the heroic middle-aged man. On the heroic middle-aged man's body, Du Xiaofu felt an aura that was different from that of his uncle Du Jinwu. This aura was not as strong as that of his uncle Du Jinwu. It was more gentle. However, Du Xiaofu's intuition told him that this gentle aura was stronger than that of his uncle Du Xiaofu. Is this the Stone City's lord, Yi Baolin? Du Xiaofu looked up at the heroic middle-aged man. He had heard of the Stone City's lord, Yi Baolin's name, but he had never seen him before. He had heard that this time, the lord of the Stone City had come. Without a doubt, the person sitting at the top was naturally the lord of the Stone City. When he was very young, Du Xiaofu had read a lot of books under the guidance of the Du family's private tutor. He had heard a lot about the outside world. Stone City was just a border city of the empire. There were counties above the city, there were mansions above the counties, and the mansions above the mansions were under the direct jurisdiction of the empire. It was rumored that the lord of the mansions was the existence of a marquis or king. They were all famous experts. Of course, there were many empires on the continent. There were often wars between the empires, and there were countless casualties. Fortunately, Stone City was a border city and did not have a border with other empires. Usually, there would not be any wars between the empires. It could be regarded as a paradise. When Du Xiaofu's gaze landed on a young girl beside the middle-aged man, Du Xiaofu's eyes moved slightly. He was a little surprised just now. When did he save the city lord's daughter? So she was the city lord's daughter. Only then did Du Xiaofu seriously size up the young girl. He carefully sized her up. Her appearance was really not bad. She was not inferior to the profound talisman sect's Zhu Shua. She could even be compared to the woman in tight clothes whom he had robbed before. However, if the two were to be compared, the two temperaments were different. That woman was noble and tall, but the young girl in front of him was a bit more cold and elegant. Greetings to eldest uncle, second uncle, and all the elders. Du Xiaofu glanced over the matter. It seemed that the people from the Yi clan had been chatting with his eldest uncle for a long time. He quickly walked to his eldest uncle, second uncle, and the elders of the clan and bowed. As for the so-called elders of the Du clan, Du Xiaofu did not pay attention to them. Xiaofu, let me introduce you. This is Lord Yi, quickly bow. As for Lord Ye's daughter, Miss Zijin, I think you already know her. Du Jinwu smiled and introduced to Du Xiaofu. Greetings to Lord Yi. Du Xiaofu heard this. His guess was right. The heroic middle-aged man was the lord of Stone City, Yi Baolin. He immediately bowed. Nephew, there's no need to be so courteous. What city lord? Just call me Uncle Yi. I came here specifically to thank you. If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid Zijin would be in danger now. You're truly a young hero. My Stone City has produced another outstanding talent. Yi Baolin looked at Du Xiaofu and smiled. It was clear that he really wanted to thank him. Then he waved his hand. Behind him, a person wearing armor and dressed like a soldier came forward and handed a 3-feet-long box to Du Xiaofu. Yi Baolin smiled at Du Xiaofu and signaled Du Xiaofu to accept the box. He said, Nephew Xiaofu, please accept it. This is the Ink Spirit Sword from my Yi clan. Although it is not enough to represent the value of Zijin in my heart, it is still a small token of my appreciation. Chapter 48. It's actually the Ink Spirit Sword. What extravagance! Hearing the 3 words Ink Spirit Sword, the eyes of many of the Du family elders in the hall immediately lit up, and many envious and passionate gazes immediately fell on Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu was taken aback. From the reactions of the crowd, it was not difficult to tell that this ink spirit sword was not an ordinary item, and for a moment, he did not know whether to accept it or not. Accept it, thank you for saving me and my Yi family disciples. A small ink spirit sword is really not enough to express my gratitude. Yi Zijin opened her mouth, looking at Du Xiaofu with a radiant smile, causing many of the younger Du family disciples to stare in a daze. Miss Yi is too courteous. My help last time was really not worth mentioning, I dare not accept your thanks. Du Xiaofu nodded slightly at Yi Zijin. In fact, this was the first time he had spoken formally with Yi Zijin, and then his gaze turned towards his eldest uncle and second uncle. Xiaofu, please accept City Lord Ye's good intentions. Du Jinwu smiled at Du Xiaofu. Thank you very much, City Lord Yi. Du Xiaofu did not stand on ceremony, and gently accepted the brocade box from the armored soldier. Remember to call me Uncle Yi, calling me City Lord would seem distant. Yi Baolin smiled with satisfaction. Yes, Uncle Yi. Du Xiaofu nodded in response. Yi Zijin stood up, looking at Du Xiaofu, her pearly white teeth parted slightly as she smiled. I wonder if my savior is free today, would you like to accompany me for a stroll in the city? What? As Yi Zijin's words left her mouth, the outstanding younger generation of the Du family in the hall were instantly speechless with envy. In the entire Stone City, who knew how many outstanding people were pursuing this daughter of the city lord, but until now, no one had ever had the chance. All the suitors could only raise their heads and look up to her. Yet now, this daughter of the city governor that all the suitors in the city looked up to had actually taken the initiative to ask Du Xiaofu out. The deep meaning contained within this was sufficient to cause one's imagination to run wild, and even the gazes of Du Jinwu, Du Zhixiong, and the others fluctuated in their hearts. Du Xiaofu raised his head to look at Yi Zijin in front of him. Under the gaze of all eyes, his face revealed an extremely regretful expression. Thank you Miss Yi for thinking so highly of me, but I am very sorry, I happen to have some important matters to attend to today, how about another day? Of course, then we shall go another day. Yi Zijin's delicate and charming face had a smile from beginning to end. Her smile was very beautiful, causing many of the Du family's youths to be reluctant to shift their gazes away. No way, Du Xiaofu actually rejected Miss Yi Zijin. Didn't he say he wasn't stupid? Why is he acting stupid again now? This brat beat up Du Hao and the others yesterday, so he can't be stupid. Many of the elders in the clan were discussing how to punish him last night. I'm afraid it's impossible to punish him. The city lord has already come to thank him today, so who can do anything to him? It can only be considered as Du Hao and the others being unlucky. In the hall, the last group of the younger generation of the Du family had already begun to discuss in low voices. All of them were filled with hatred. If Miss Yi Zijin had invited them, they would have put aside even the most important matters. They had never imagined that Du Xiaofu would actually reject her like this. He, I came here mainly to thank nephew Xiaofu. There are many matters in the city, so I have to take my leave first. I will disturb everyone in the Du family another day. Yi Baolin smiled, stood up and took his leave. I won't keep you any longer. I know you have many matters to attend to in the city. Du Jinwu did not say too many polite words, and his tone was not very polite either. This proved that their relationship was not bad. When Yi Baolin left, the Du family naturally followed and sent him off. Du Xiaofu also followed behind until the Yi family members were far away. Looking at the Yi family members in the distance, Du Jinwu's expression suddenly froze. Then, he walked back to the Du family with his hands behind his back. A voice said to Du Xiaofu, Xiaofu, come to the hall for a moment. I have something to ask you. When Du Jinwu's voice fell, many of the Du family elders immediately looked at Du Xiaofu with eyes filled with anger. It was as if Du Xiaofu owed them tens of millions of cultivation coins. Let's go to the hall. Du Zhixiong stood behind Du Xiaofu without anyone noticing. He gently patted Du Xiaofu's shoulder with a smile on his face. "And?" Du Xiaofu nodded with a smile on his face. Looks like Du Xiaofu still can't escape this calamity. Of course. Last time, Du Xiaofu robbed Du Hao and the others of their violent stone demon wolf blood essence and foundation establishment pill. Yesterday, Du Hao and the others were beaten so badly by Du Xiaofu again. The Great Elder and the others naturally won't let it go. I heard that the Great Elder personally went to find the Patriarch last night. No wonder the City Lord came today and couldn't help Du Xiaofu avoid this calamity. There's a show to watch. Let's go and take a look. Greetings, City Lord. Look, City Lord Yi is coming out. On the wide streets of the Stone City, the Yi clan's Fergana horse swayed back and forth. It had an extraordinary aura. Along the way, it attracted countless gazes. All the residents of the city saluted. This was something that the other 4 clans couldn't compare with. As the city lord, he was the true owner of the Stone City. Girl, did you see clearly? On the Fergana horse, Yi Baolin occasionally waved his hand to the surrounding residents and asked the girl beside him. His tone was calm, without any emotion. The more I interact with him, the more I can't see clearly. Yi Zijin said softly. Ever since they came out of the Du clan, she had been frowning. Neither servile nor overbearing, advancing and retreating in an orderly manner. No wonder he was able to endure for 10 years. What a foolish young master. It seems that this time, the Du clan has really produced an extraordinary young man. Yi Baolin smiled. Gazing at the young girl beside him, his eyes were filled with love as he said, "But I didn't expect that he would actually reject my precious daughter. Could it be that he doesn't like my precious daughter? Father, how can you use this to make fun of your daughter? If it wasn't for the Yi clan, I wouldn't be like this." Yi Zijin glared at Yi Baolin. Her charming face was filled with anger. She then murmured, "But no matter what, there is still a month left. I'm afraid that there will be some excitement in the Stone City. The real excitement will be in a month. At that time." Yi Baolin seemed to have heard Yi Zijin's words. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. His expression also became serious. In the main hall of the Du clan, everyone was once again seated. The few elders of the Du clan were still among them, but many of them were looking at Du Xiaofu with hatred. Du Xiaofu stood in the middle of the hall, hugging the brocade box that Yi Baolin had just given him. He didn't have time to look at the ink spirit sword inside, but it was neither light nor heavy. Glancing at the elders of the Du family in the hall, Du Xiaofu recognized many of them. They were the parents, uncles, and aunts of Du Hao, Du Yan, and the others who were beaten up by him yesterday. "Xiaofu, I heard that you injured Du Hao, Du Yan and the others yesterday. Do you know that you have violated the rules of the Du clan?" At the head of the hall, Du Jinwu looked at Du Xiaofu. His eyes were filled with dignity. As the head of the Du clan, he naturally had a powerful aura. "Uncle, I didn't." Du Xiaofu raised his head with a calm expression on his face. "Du Xiaofu, you still dare to say that you didn't? You seriously injured Yenner, and he's still lying in bed, unable to move. Do you think that's fake? My Chi'er is also seriously injured and lying in bed. I'm afraid that he won't be able to get out of bed for at least a year. How can that be fake? Hauer and his cousin were seriously injured by you, and their cultivations were almost crippled by you. How vicious of you to deal such a heavy blow to your brothers and sisters." After Du Xiaofu's words sounded, the sharp voices of quite a number of gossipy women were immediately emitted from the hall. Numerous furious gazes viciously landed on Du Xiaofu's body. It was as though they wished to swallow Du Xiaofu alive. On the other hand, although there was displeasure and anger in the eyes of those men, there were not many of them who were in a hurry to express anything at this moment. "Silence!" Du Jinwu spoke up. He looked at the gossipy women with dignity in his eyes. "As elders, how can you be so noisy?" The group of women dared not say anything more when they heard that, but their gazes were fixed on Du Xiaofu without any kindness. Only then did Du Jinwu look at Du Xiaofu and ask, "Xiaofu, you've heard what the elders said. Do you have anything to say? Yes. Du Xiaofu's reply was simple and forceful. Afterwards, he looked at Du Jinwu and asked, Uncle, they said that I beat someone up. May I ask if anyone here saw it with their own eyes? Everyone was stunned when they heard that. Even Du Jinwu and Du Zhixiong were caught off guard. Du Xiaofu, you're lying through your teeth at such a young age. More than 10 people were injured by you. What other excuses do you have? After being stunned for a moment, the gossipy women began to stir again. Indeed, no one had seen it with their own eyes yesterday. They were actually clear about the situation yesterday. Du Xiaofu and the others went to find trouble with Du Xiaofu, so it was naturally not easy for others to see them. However, in the end, they did not expect that instead of trouble, more than 10 people were injured by Du Xiaofu. Uncle, I didn't beat anyone up. If you don't believe me, you can call them out for a confrontation. Du Xiaofu did not pay attention to those gossipy women. There was not much emotion on his face, and he remained indifferent. Confrontation, yes, we'll know once we confront them. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, some gossipy women immediately became happy as if they had caught something that could be used against him. With more than 10 people confronting each other, there was no need to be afraid that this guy would not admit the truth. At that time, even the family head would not be able to protect him. It was an ironclad fact that Du Hao and the others were beaten up. Once they confronted each other, there was no need to be afraid that the guy would deny it. Chapter 49. Good, then let's have a confrontation. Du Jinwu looked at Du Xiaofu, his eyes slightly fluctuating. However, this was Du Xiaofu's first suggestion, so he nodded and said to the people in the hall, then quickly call Du Hao and the others over. Hearing Du Jinwu's words, many gossipy women immediately walked out happily. As long as they had a confrontation, Du Xiaofu would not be able to deny it. Xiaofu, sit down and wait. Du Zhixiong had been sitting there without saying anything. After seeing those gossipy women go out, he opened his mouth to speak. Thank you, second uncle. Du Xiaofu did not stand on ceremony, nor did he look for an empty seat at the bottom of the hall. Instead, he directly sat where Yi Zijin had sat not long ago. It could be considered as the head of the hall, giving off a feeling of superiority. Du Xiaofu did not sit where Yi Baolin had sat, so he was on the same level as eldest uncle. Many people saw Du Xiaofu directly sitting at the head of the hall, and their eyes had some opinions, but they did not dare to say anything at this time. After all, Du Xiaofu was the nephew of the clan head and second master. At this time, under the intimidation of the clan head and second master, no one dared to directly express anything. They could only allow those gossipy women to make a fuss first. Firstly, the clan head could not say anything, and secondly, it was a test of the waters. After all, now everyone knew that Du Xiaofu was no longer that foolish young master. With his identity as the son of the third master, he naturally had a much higher status than his peers in the clan. The Du clan was divided into the main branch and the side branch, but there was no doubt that Du Xiaofu's identity was the main branch of the main branch. Du Xiaofu did not bother to pay attention to the gazes of others, nor did he intend to pay attention to them. He directly opened the brocade box in his hand, and then a 1-meter-long sword appeared in his hand. The scabbard was simple, and the decorations were simple, revealing a heavy aura. Buzz! Du Xiaofu unsheathed his sword, and the sword hummed like a rainbow. The 3-feet-long sword was completely black in color, and runes were engraved on it. A fierce aura immediately swept out. Everyone's gazes were fixed on the ink-black sword. They looked at it quietly, but it was as if they were looking at a living creature. It was like a sleeping dragon or a hibernating beast. It made people's hearts tremble for no reason. What a good ink spirit sword! It's a mid-grade spirit weapon. In the Great Hall, many gazes were fixed on Du Xiaofu as the ink spirit sword in his hand became heated. If it weren't for the presence of the Patriarch and the Second Master, there would probably be people who would not be able to resist the urge to charge up. A middle-grade spirit artifact was something that an ordinary pulsation realm expert would not be able to afford even if they sold their entire fortune. Du Xiaofu sure is lucky. The owners of the heated gazes wanted nothing more than to tear Du Xiaofu to shreds. Without a doubt, Du Xiaofu's luck was too good this time. Yi Baolin's first move was a middle-grade spirit artifact. One had to know that this ink spirit sword was famous in the entire stone city. Du Zhixiong and Du Zhenwu's gazes also fell on the ink spirit sword. They faintly smiled, but there were serious doubts in their eyes, as if they were thinking about something. In this world, there were spirit artifacts, talisman artifacts, magic artifacts, Dao artifacts, and saint artifacts. In fact, these were all weapons. However, weapons that had reached the spirit artifact level could not be compared to those ordinary items. They had all reached the level of treasures. Spirit artifacts, talisman artifacts, magic artifacts, Dao artifacts, and saint artifacts. Every single one of them was further divided into the elementary grade, middle grade, and high grade. According to legend, those magic artifacts and Dao artifacts already possessed the might to move mountains and overturn seas. If they were refined by an expert for their own use, they would be capable of penetrating the heavens and earth and shaking mountains and rivers. As a martial artist, a good weapon could naturally greatly increase one's strength. If two people of similar strength had a weapon that was much stronger than the other, then the chances of winning would naturally be more than 99%. Du Xiaofu knew that this ink spirit sword was not ordinary. From the surprised voices in the Great Hall, he could tell that this ink spirit sword was a middle-grade spirit artifact. Although it was only a middle-grade spirit artifact, its value was already shocking. This time, the Yi family was extremely generous. It seems like I have not cultivated any sword martial techniques. However, he had not cultivated any sword martial techniques. Currently, he had no use for this ink spirit sword. Sheathing the sword, Du Xiaofu put the ink spirit sword back into the brocade box under the blazing gazes of the crowd. The blazing gazes were somewhat restrained this time. If Du Xiaofu had this ink spirit sword in his hands 2 months ago, not to mention those of the same generation who would fight for it, even the elders of the Du family who were currently seated would definitely put aside their pride to fight for it. Family head, elders, Du Hao and the rest have all arrived. At this moment, those gossipy women who had hurriedly gone to confront the others hurriedly returned. Every one of them had a cold smile on their faces, waiting for Du Xiaofu to be unable to explain himself. They were afraid that in front of the truth, there was absolutely no room for denial. Greetings, Patriarch. Greetings, elders. Du Hao, Du Yan and the rest had all arrived. Instantly, they bowed towards the family head and the elders of the Du family, feeling wronged. Every one of them was wrapped in gauze and their faces were smeared with ointment. From the looks of it, before coming here, they had definitely dressed up meticulously. Family head, elders, Du Xiaofu has gone too far. He ruthlessly beat us up and even stole our belongings. Family head, elders, please uphold justice for us. After more than 10 young men and women who were wrapped up meticulously bowed, Du Hao was the first to kneel down. His face was filled with grievance, and his eyes were almost watery, making him look very pitiful. Family head, elders, please uphold justice for us and severely punish the murderer, Du Xiaofu. Du Yan and the rest immediately followed Du Hao and kneeled down. All the spearheads were naturally focused on Du Xiaofu. Indeed, they were all beaten up by Du Xiaofu. This could not be considered unjust. They were also beaten up quite badly. The few elders were visibly moved as they looked at Du Zhenwu, waiting for him to speak. These injuries were indeed real, and the beating was not light. It was just that the bandages were a little overdone, but that was purely for visual effect. It did not affect the vicious gazes of the experts present. Du Hao and the others were not lightly beaten, definitely not lightly. Du Zhenwu and Du Zhixiong looked at Du Hao and the rest. Their gazes also changed slightly. They naturally could see that Du Hao, Du Yan and the rest had suffered a lot. Du Zhenwu looked at Du Xiaofu and calmly asked, Xiaofu, do you have any explanation? Yes. Du Xiaofu nodded. Looking at Du Hao and the rest who were kneeling on the ground in front of him, he opened his mouth and said, didn't you say that Du Hao, Du Yan and the rest were beaten up by me to the point where they could not get out of bed for a year and a half? Why did they come out now? How could Du Xiaofu not know the severity of the people he beat up? Although he didn't beat them lightly, it was impossible for him to really beat up those guys. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Du Hao and the rest of the gossipy women were suddenly speechless. In fact, the Du family members present already knew in their hearts that it was a bit exaggerated to say that Du Hao and the rest would not be able to get out of the house for a year and a half. However, this was only a modifier. It proved that Du Hao and the rest were really beaten up badly. Who would have thought that Du Xiaofu would actually go off topic and use this sentence to make an issue out of it, leaving them somewhat speechless? Du Xiaofu, what does this have to do with you mercilessly bullying your brothers and sisters? Now that the facts are in front of you, do you still want to deny it? A somewhat fierce-looking woman stepped forward bravely. She did not want to be involved with Du Xiaofu on these unrelated issues. Du Xiaofu looked at the woman, his calm and clear eyes suddenly became fierce. He said in a deep voice, "How can it not be related? You said that Du Hao and the rest were beaten up by me to the point where they could not get out of bed and could not get out of the house. Now it seems that you are obviously lying. You are wronging me. As the saying goes, if there is a first, there will be a second. Therefore, you said that I beat up Du Hao and the rest, you are also wronging me." Du Xiaofu, hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the woman was so angry that she almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Du Xiaofu, you are denying it. Du Xiaofu, you are pestering endlessly. Clearly, you are the one who was merciless and seriously injured Yan, and the rest. One by one, the gossipy women began to criticize Du Xiaofu. How could they allow Du Xiaofu to deny it? Du Xiaofu looked at the gossipy women. His clear eyes were filled with fierceness. He said, "You are all my elders. Now, so many elders are bullying me, besieging me, and framing me. It doesn't matter if I am wronged or wronged by you, but if this spread out, don't you think that the Du family's face will be lost because of you?" When the gossipy women heard this, their voices came to an abrupt stop. Their faces turned red, and blood flowed out from the corners of their mouths. Chapter 50. Du Xiaofu, you are denying it, we were seriously injured by you. Du Hao couldn't bear it anymore, he stood up and shouted at Du Xiaofu. "Why would I injure you?" Du Xiaofu asked. "We brought my cousin to you to ask for the violent stone demon wolf's blood essence and building foundation Dan. Not only did you not give it to us, you also seriously injured us, and finally robbed our belongings." Du Hao angrily glared at Du Xiaofu and shouted. "What is your cousin's cultivation?" Du Xiaofu asked. "Innate realm." Du Hao was puzzled, but he still loudly replied, his voice was filled with pride. Having a cousin who was in the innate realm, and an imperial knight, was naturally something worthy of his pride. "Then where is your cousin now?" Du Xiaofu asked. Among the dozens of injured people, all of them were Du family's children, but the armored youth was nowhere to be seen. Du Hao was stunned, then he clenched his teeth and said, "My cousin was seriously injured by you, he left last night and returned to the team. The violent stone demon wolf's blood essence and building foundation Dan were all won by me, why should I give it to you?" Du Xiaofu's gaze did not leave any trace as he continued to speak. "Bullshit, it's you who robbed us. It's you who robbed us of our violent stone demonic wolf's blood essence and building foundation Dan." Du Hao shouted loudly. Who would deny it like this, refusing to admit it in front of everyone? "No, I only won, I didn't rob you." Du Xiaofu insisted that he did not rob. "In front of everyone, don't deny it." Du Hao almost roared. "Then how about the cultivation coins and dawn that you robbed me for 10 years? Du Xiaofu asked. "The dawn and cultivation coins that I robbed from you, added together, are not even 1% of the price of the violent stone demon wolf's blood essence and building foundation Dan." Du Hao roared out, but as soon as he spoke, he suddenly reacted, his complexion greatly changed in a split second. A smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face, then he swept his gaze across everyone in the hall, and finally looked at Du Jinwu and said, "Uncle, you heard it, right? Du Hao and the rest have robbed my mystic coins and medicinal pills for 10 years, and they personally admitted it. There's no room for falsehood. This time, it's even worse. He brought his cousin along to rob me, and in the end, he falsely accused me of seriously injuring them and robbing them. His cousin is a Xiantian realm cultivator, and he said that I seriously injured them. How could I have done that? Uncle, please help me. Du Xiaofu, you're slandering me." Du Hao glared at Du Xiaofu and shouted. In the end, he spat out a mouthful of blood. It was unknown whether it was because of his injuries or because he was too angry. "You personally admitted that you robbed me of 10 years of cultivation coins and pills. I'm not lying," Du Xiaofu said indifferently. "Even so, it's true that you robbed us of our building foundation Dan and violent stone demon wolf's blood essence. Yesterday, you also seriously injured us and robbed us of all our belongings." Du Hao shouted loudly. At this time, he could only say what he wanted to say. He didn't believe that Du Xiaofu could really quibble his way out of this. First, according to the rules of the clan, only the winner of the competition between the younger generation can get the violent stone demon wolf's blood essence and building foundation Dan. I also have the qualifications. The three of you together are not my opponent, so the violent stone demon wolf's blood essence and building foundation Dan are naturally mine. Do you have the qualifications to take them? Du Xiaofu looked at Du Hao and said. His voice slowly fell in the hall, and many people's eyes secretly changed. Indeed, Du Xiaofu was right. He also had the qualifications to participate in the competition. Du Hao and the other two were not his opponent. The clan's best resources were naturally given to the strongest younger generation. Although Du Xiaofu took 3 things, which was a bit too much, but it also proved his ability. He was dealing with 3 people alone, and he had already taken 3 things. Now, what else could they do? If they really wanted to blame someone, they could only blame Du Hao and the other 2 for not having the ability. Du Xiaofu looked at Du Hao and continued, "Second, you don't have the ability, but you still brought outsiders to find trouble with me. In the end, you don't even know why you turned against me, and even said that I seriously injured you. I injured you. Anyway, you don't have the ability, so you can't blame anyone for not being my opponent. But open your eyes and think about it. That cousin of yours is a Xiantian realm warrior. How can I beat him? Clearly, he was the one who injured me yesterday and even robbed my belongings. It's fine that I didn't come to complain. I planned to endure for a while to calm down and take a step back. I didn't expect that you guys would come to frame me and frame me. The Du family really shames the ancestors of the Du family for having descendants like you." The whole place was silent. Everyone looked at Du Xiaofu with astonishment in their eyes. Was this still Du Xiaofu? Was this really the Du Xiaofu of the past? Du Hao and the other 3 women plus dozens of people were not his opponent. Everyone could hear that Du Xiaofu not only pushed himself away, but also scolded Du Hao and the other 10 people. What he meant was that they came to find trouble with him, but instead, they were injured by him. Even if they didn't have the ability, they still had the cheek to complain. Wasn't it shameful enough? They were simply letting their ancestors down. Du Xiaofu, you're talking nonsense. Du Hao's cousin was beaten by you yesterday. He couldn't even get up. He was not your opponent. You robbed us. Du Yan and Du Chong couldn't help but rush out. All the injured people's faces were red. They were going to die of suffocation. Du Yan, Du Chong, according to age, you are my cousins. I am your younger brother. It's fine if you don't love me, take care of me, and care for me. But do you have to treat your younger brother like this? Du Xiaofu's face was full of resentment, and he shouted at Du Yan, Du Chong, and the others, use your brains to think. A Xiantian realm cultivator was seriously injured by me in one move. I am a waste martial vein cultivator. Although I can cultivate now, but do you think I am big uncle, second uncle, or the elders? How can a Xiantian realm cultivator be beaten down in one move? It was clearly that person who beat me down in one move. If I didn't escape quickly, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to come to the hall today. Everyone in the hall was visibly moved, including the elders of the clan. It was indeed impossible for a Xiantian stage cultivator to be beaten down by Du Xiaofu in one move. No matter how strong Du Xiaofu was, he didn't have that kind of strength. Some people in the hall had already begun to think that although Du Hao, Du Yan, and the others had suffered a little, they had probably panicked a little too much. With Du Hao's cousin present, they were afraid that Du Xiaofu would not be able to gain any advantage and would definitely suffer some losses. In addition, Du Xiaofu was right. Du Hao and Du Yan could be considered as Du Xiaofu's elder brothers. More than a dozen people bullying the young was really not good. Moreover, they even brought outsiders to deal with Du Xiaofu. This was even more excessive. Venomous slander, inverting black and white. Pucci, several youths' blood and chi attacked their hearts. They were so angry that blood mist spurted out of their mouths. How could they play with people like this? How could they deny it like this? Now it was their turn to be powerless to defend themselves. So Du Xiaofu had become the victim. How am I inverting black and white? Why don't you call that cousin of Du Hao's to come and confront him? He is a Xiantian realm cultivator. He came to my Du family to bully me. I'm afraid that my Du family will settle the score with him, so he didn't dare to stay. Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at Du Yan and the others. In any case, Du Hao's cousin had already left. It would be difficult to confront him. Moreover, even if he came to confront him, it wouldn't matter. A person had two mouths. Besides eating, wasn't it just for talking? You, Pucci, Du Hao, Du Yan, Du Chong and the others' blood and chi attacked their hearts again. Blood mist spurted out. A few Du family elders finally fainted. They reluctantly rushed up to check on their injuries. I believe that cousin Du Hao and the others will definitely be able to win glory for the Du family. That's right, cousin Du Hao, Du Chong, and cousin Du Yan have robbed me of 10 years' worth of medicinal pills and mystic coins. Yesterday, they even injured me and robbed my belongings. I will not pursue this matter anymore. I hope that uncle will not make things difficult for cousin Du Hao and the others. After all, they still have to win glory for the Du family in a month. I will take my leave first. As his voice fell, Du Xiaofu stood up. Hugging the ink spirit sword, he left the hall without looking back. The hall was silent once again. Everyone was stunned. Du Xiaofu's words had a hidden meaning. He did not plan to go to the competition between the 5 great families' younger generation in a month's time and asked Du Hao, Du Yan and the others to go. However, everyone knew that even if Du Hao and the others joined forces, they were still not a match for Du Xiaofu alone. What the hell was there to go? The Du family's biggest hope was undoubtedly on Du Xiaofu. Everyone understood that Du Xiaofu wanted the patriarch to not blame Du Hao, Du Chong, and Du Yan for robbing him of 10 years' worth of medicinal pills and mystic coins, as well as yesterday's matter. However, the real meaning was that if he was not given a satisfactory answer, then the competition between the 5 great families' younger generation in a month's time would have nothing to do with him. The entire hall fell into silence. No one had thought that things would develop like this. The current Du Xiaofu was no longer the Du Xiaofu of the past. Compared to him, Du Hao, Du Yan, and the others were not enough. The majority of the people still believed that Du Hao and the others must have suffered a great loss. After all, their injuries were obvious to all. However, it was a pity that Du Hao, Du Yan, and the others could not win against Du Xiaofu. In the end, they were rendered speechless by Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu, that little fellow, is too sneaky. Could it be that, for those 10 years, that little fellow was really enduring? Enduring for an entire 10 years? Everyone sighed in their hearts. Under the ridicule, and abuse of all the family members, enduring for 10 years, what kind of perseverance and state of mind did that require? And now, that youth no longer endured. Compared to him, Du Hao, Du Yan, and Du Chong were simply unable to withstand a single blow. Chapter 51. Nonsense. You are all Du clan's disciples, yet you dare to cause trouble. A few of the Du family elders stood up and left the hall after saying a few inexplicable words, no longer paying any attention to Du Hao and the others. Stop fooling around. Disperse. Du Jinwu stood up, shook his sleeves, and left with the Du clan elders. Du Hao, Du Chong, Du Yan, and the other gossipy women were stunned in the hall, not knowing what to say. This result was completely different from what they had imagined. They originally thought that even if they couldn't punish Du Xiaofu, they could at least get back the violent stone demon wolf's blood essence and foundation establishment pill. This was their true goal. Who knew that not only did they not get anything, they even lost face. After Du Xiaofu left the Du clan's hall, it was already noon. After returning to the courtyard, Du Xiaofu placed the ink spirit sword into his Qianquan bag and went directly to the martial scripture tower. Outside the martial scripture tower, Fu Yibai was leisurely leaning back on a rattan chair. In front of him, a Du clan youth was respectfully cleaning the place. After Du Xiaofu greeted Fu Yibai, he directly entered the martial scripture tower, causing the youth to be envious. This time, Du Xiaofu didn't go to the martial scripture tower to look for martial skills to cultivate. Instead, he wanted to find some things related to spirit talisman masters to understand so that he wouldn't be cheated by that swindler, Zhen Qingchun. The more he understood, the less chance he would be cheated. Unfortunately, there were no records of spirit talisman masters in the martial scripture tower that Du Xiaofu wanted. However, he did find some simple introductions. Spirit talisman master was a profession with a higher status than martial artists. Among ordinary people, there were very few who could become martial artists, and even fewer could become spirit talisman masters. The prerequisites to becoming a spirit talisman master were too harsh, and not many people could meet those harsh requirements. At the same time, talisman master was not a single profession. The three words talisman master included too many things, such as alchemy, refining weapons, and setting up formations. These were all things that talisman masters had to dabble in. It was said that it was impossible to have an all-round talisman master. After exchanging a few words with Fu Yibai and leaving the martial repository, Du Xiaofu didn't return to the courtyard but went to the back mountain instead. Interesting. This is getting more and more interesting. Looking at Du Xiaofu's back, a trace of a smile appeared on Fu Yibai's face. Then, he closed his eyes and said to the youth in charge of cleaning, "Clean up seriously for me. Sweep the floor for me as well." In the back mountain of the Du family, Du Xiaofu fished out his Qianquan pouch. He took out some spirit herbs that he had plundered and directly stuffed them into his mouth. If a spirit talisman master saw Du Xiaofu directly swallowing spirit herbs, he would be heartbroken. Directly swallowing spirit herbs without extracting the impurities contained within would cause the essence of the spirit herbs to not reach its optimal state. For a spirit talisman master who was proficient in alchemy, it was naturally a waste of spirit herbs. However, Du Xiaofu did not care about this. For someone who practiced the cultivation method of the golden winged rock, the energy contained within the spirit herbs would remain in the body after consuming them. With the masochistic body refinement method, it was equivalent to a spirit talisman master refining spirit herbs. The effect was not inferior to a spirit talisman master refining spirit herbs. Rumble. A moment later, rumbling noises came from the depths of the Du family's back mountain. The startled birds flapped their wings and flew far away, while the wild beasts either hid or fled. Du Xiaofu wore a pair of shorts and his body was wrapped in a pale golden light as he smashed into the cliff in a masochistic manner. Not far away, the king-scaled demonic tiger, the size of a wild cat, stared intently at the talisman patterns overflowing from the pale golden light around Du Xiaofu's body. It stared intently as if it was trying to comprehend something. This continued all the way until nightfall, when the rumbling noises gradually subsided. The elixirs in Du Xiaofu's body were almost completely absorbed. He put on his clothes, and then sat cross-legged in the back of the mountain. He began to cultivate, and completely refined the remaining elixirs in his body. Of course, the benefits brought by these elixirs were far from being comparable to the blood infant spirit mushroom. Huff! Early in the morning, Du Xiaofu exhaled a mouthful of turbid air in the back mountain. His eyes opened and 2 drops of dew hung on his long eyelashes. His eyes were suffused with a pale golden glow. The redness and swelling on his body from yesterday's collision had completely recovered, causing his body to become even more sturdy and tall. I should go and purchase the list today. Du Xiaofu softly muttered. The list given to him by Jin Qingchun needed to be completed as soon as possible. In the bustling stone city, the streets were bustling with people shuttling back and forth. From time to time, the clamor of hawking could be heard. Du Xiaofu walked in the stone city and looked around with interest. Along the way, he leisurely strolled and even bought a few suitable clothes and a few purple robes. In the end, he even bought a good wine jug. Textile City was the most prosperous place in the entire stone city. The Feng family, Qin family, Yi family, and Bai family also had many shops in Textile City. There were many shops in Textile City with a dazzling array of goods. Among them, there were many shops that sold martial arts items such as spirit herbs, martial skills, weapons, and so on. Therefore, Textile City was also the place where martial arts practitioners gathered the most. Martial arts practitioners had a unique status in this world. In this world, the strong were respected and strength was paramount. Martial arts practitioners who were much stronger than ordinary people were naturally respected. However, not everyone could become a martial arts practitioner. The difficulty was beyond the belief of ordinary people. Moreover, to become a martial arts practitioner, it was not something that could be achieved through pure effort. Du Xiaofu wanted to buy the things on Jin Qingchuan's list. Most of the items on the list were spirit herbs. Although he had plundered some spirit herbs from Shouhu's body, it was far from enough. The variety was also not complete. Not to mention, practicing the body refining technique required a lot of spirit herbs. Therefore, Du Xiaofu estimated that the things on the list would be expensive. Unless he sold some of the good things in the 2 Qianquan bags, he would certainly not be able to afford them. The Du family had shops that specialized in selling spirit herbs, weapons, martial skills, and elixirs. Of course, the level of martial skills and elixirs were not high. Other families also had similar shops in Textile City, but they also did not have good things. They could only meet the needs of the Stone City. Although the Stone City was a city, it was after all a border area. There was no way to have good things. Du family's shop, Du family's shop. Du Xiaofu walked into the Du family's shop. Greetings to young Master Xiaofu. Inside the Du family's shop, there were 2 tall and sturdy men dressed in tight clothes. When they saw Du Xiaofu, they were stunned. It was obvious that they were quite surprised. Then, they immediately bowed respectfully. Du Xiaofu nodded, indicating that the 2 men did not need to be overly courteous. He took out a large bag and a list that he had prepared beforehand and handed it to the 2 men. He said, "Give these things to your shopkeeper and calculate how much they are worth. In addition, I want to buy some things." Since he wanted to buy things and spirit herbs, he would not let the fertile water flow to his own fields. The quantity was relatively large. Du Xiaofu naturally chose his own shop first. The 2 burly men took the bundle and list and immediately went to look for the head shopkeeper. Du Xiaofu, on the other hand, was slowly sizing up the interior of the shop. Other than the few times he visited this shop when he was young, this was his first time here. Not long after, the shopkeeper personally ran out. "Xiaofu, why are you here?" The shopkeeper was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was thin and not very tall, but his eyes were bright. One look and one could tell that he was an extremely shrewd person. Du Xiaofu recognized this middle-aged man. His name was Du Ping, a member of the main branch of the Du family. It was said that his martial talent was not high, so he was in charge of the Du family's shop. One must know that in this world where martial arts were respected, if one's martial talent was not high, even if he was in charge of the Du family's shop, his position in the Du family was not high. Therefore, he usually did not return to the Du family. He would only return during festivals. "Uncle Ping, does the shop have the things I want?" Du Xiaofu had a lot of respect for Du Ping. He remembered that when he was young, this Uncle Ping would bring back a lot of candies for the younger generation every time he went back. Of course, Du Xiaofu would get his share as well, even more than the others. There is, but the things you want are not few. Some of them are items that are rarely used. I need some time to prepare them. When I'm done, I'll help you send them back. How about it? Du Ping looked at Du Xiaofu with a puzzled expression. He had naturally heard about the things that happened in the family in the past 2 months. Now, the things that Du Xiaofu wanted were things that only soul symbol masters could use. Moreover, the things that Du Xiaofu had just sent over were not ordinary and were worth a lot. It seemed that the rumors in the family were true. The youth in front of him was only pretending to be a fool for the past 10 years. Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, "All right. I've made a rough calculation. The things you sent over are not cheap. They are worth a total of 21,000 cultivation coins. This is also the highest price in the market. However, I'll give you the things you want at cost price. It will cost 15,000 cultivation coins. The remaining 6,000 cultivation coins are all in here." Du Ping handed over an extremely exquisite card to Du Xiaofu. There were runes engraved on it. He said, "This is a cultivation coin card. It can be exchanged at many places." "Thank you, Uncle Ping." Du Xiaofu did not act polite. His family's shop naturally would not cheat him. If it was not for the fact that it was his family's shop, he was afraid that the things he sold would not be able to cover the price of the things he bought. One must know that the profits from selling elixirs were enormous. "When we return, let me greet your father," Du Ping said with a smile. "I will." Du Xiaofu nodded. He put away the cultivation coin card and left the Du family's shop. Chapter 52. In the morning, the streets of Stone City were bustling with even more people. "Miss Yi Zijin is here." The crowd was in an uproar, and all the gazes on the street immediately turned to the front. There were a dozen young men and women, and all of them were clustered around a young girl. The young lady's footsteps were light and graceful. Her eyes were misty as she pointed at the flowers that filled the city. She was charming and graceful. Her skin was like jade, and she emitted the fragrance of a young lady. Along the way, she caused the gazes of the young men beside her to become dazed. There were a few young ladies who were originally extremely beautiful in the surroundings. However, they were immediately overshadowed when compared to her. Beside the young girl, a well-dressed young man followed closely, politely talking to her from time to time. "Yi Zijin." Du Xiaofu frowned. He did not expect to meet her, and immediately turned to leave. "Xiaofu." However, it was already too late for Du Xiaofu to leave. Yi Zijin had already seen Du Xiaofu. Her graceful figure immediately stepped forward, and the smile on her face attracted everyone's attention. Then, she arrived in front of Du Xiaofu. "Miss Yi." Looking at the face in front of him, Du Xiaofu could only sigh in his heart. It was not difficult to see that as long as she was a little more mature, she would be as beautiful as a celestial. The corners of Yi Zijin's delicate mouth slightly rose, and her red lips slightly opened, tempting others to kiss her. She said to Du Xiaofu, "Xiaofu, just call me by my name, Zijin. Otherwise, it will make us seem distant." "This." Du Xiaofu frowned. "What, are you looking down on me?" Yi Zijin looked at Du Xiaofu, revealing a smile that could make the surrounding people jealous. She gently opened her mouth and said, "Then it's settled. You are not allowed to be polite to me in the future. Also, you were not free yesterday. Since we met today, you can accompany me for a stroll." "Little sister Zijin, who is this?" "Big sister Zijin, where did this handsome man come from?" A few similarly extraordinary young girls walked up, their bright eyes curiously landing on Du Xiaofu's body. The slightly thin figure under the purple robe was extremely tall and straight. Coupled with his resolute and determined face, he indeed had an irresistible charm for many young girls. Let me introduce everyone. This is the young master of the Du family, Du Xiaofu. He saved my life in the barbaric beast mountain range, and can be considered my savior. Yi Zijin said happily. She was not sure if it was intentional or not, but she stood next to Du Xiaofu, as if she wanted to tell the other young girls that he was hers, and that he had nothing to do with them. Du Xiaofu from the Du family. Upon hearing this, many people's gazes darkened. The name Du Xiaofu was definitely not unfamiliar to the entire Stone City. Especially during this period of time, the news of the city lord personally coming to the Du family to thank Du Xiaofu stirred up quite a bit of commotion in the Stone City. So he is Du Xiaofu from the Du family. Is that the legendary foolish young master of the Du family? Which part of him looks like a fool? Upon hearing this, the onlookers on both sides of the street immediately turned their gazes towards Du Xiaofu, a famous person who they had only heard of before. Their gazes were filled with curiosity. So you are the foolish young master of the Du family. A voice rang out, and several youths surrounded the well-dressed young man as they walked over. The well-dressed young man looked to be around 18 or 19 years old, and he seemed to be slightly more muscular than Du Xiaofu. He was about the same height, and his face was rather handsome. However, when he looked at Du Xiaofu, there was not much kindness in his eyes, only mockery and ridicule. Then, he looked towards Yi Zijin and said with a smile, "Little sister Zijin, your status is noble, don't let some people affect your noble status." Hearing this, Yi Zijin's face became slightly more beautiful. She looked at the young man before her and gently said, "Qihu, Xiaofu is my savior, you should watch your words." Is that so? Did this fool really save you before? Qihu glanced at Du Xiaofu, feeling somewhat embarrassed. He did not expect that Yi Zijin would actually speak up for Du Xiaofu and treat him so coldly. Therefore, his gaze towards Du Xiaofu grew even darker. Whether I have saved anyone or not, whether I am a fool or not is not important. What is important is that you must not have looked at the almanac when you went out today. Just as Qihu's mocking voice sounded, Du Xiaofu's clear gaze also landed on Qihu's body. His calm words caused one to feel uneasy in their hearts. Du Xiaofu, what do you mean by this? Qihu's expression turned cold, before he looked at Du Xiaofu and laughed out loud. "Ha, do you need to look at the almanac when you go out? You really are a fool. Because if you had looked at the almanac, you would definitely not have gone out today. Today, I will clash with you, so there will definitely be a bloody calamity." Du Xiaofu looked at Qihu, his expression still as calm as ever. "Kid, you dare to curse me?" Qihu's face instantly darkened. So this Du Xiaofu was actually cursing him. "I am not cursing you, because you really will have a bloody calamity today." As his voice fell, a fierce look appeared in Du Xiaofu's originally calm eyes on his resolute face. An invisible qi spread out from his gaze in a split second, causing the surrounding space to seem to freeze. Bang! There was a deep sonic boom in the air. Du Xiaofu's fist instantly appeared in front of Yu, after pressuring the air with it. "You dare to attack me? You are courting death." Qihu's expression changed greatly, and then a sneer appeared on his face. He was also one of the best of the younger generation of the Qi clan, and had just stepped into the Xiantian stage not long ago. A glowing mist surged out from his body, wrapping around his body like a whirlpool. Surprisingly, he did not dodge. Just as Du Xiaofu's fist was about to land in front of him, he suddenly turned sideways, and his feet flashed 3 times, dodging Du Xiaofu's fist as fast as lightning. What a beautiful 3 revolving steps. I didn't expect Qihu to have practiced the Qi clan's 3 revolving steps to such an exquisite level. No wonder he is one of the best of the younger generation of the Qi clan. I didn't expect Qihu to have already stepped into the Xiantian stage. I'm afraid there are very few people in the younger generation who can match him. As Du Xiaofu and Qihu made their moves, all the onlookers fixed their eyes on the arena. One was the famous fool of the Du clan, while the other was one of the best of the younger generation of the Qi clan. The moment Qihu dodged the fist, a sneer appeared on his face. He was just a fool. Even if he was not a fool now, how strong could he be? He had already stepped into the Xiantian stage, and there were very few people in the younger generation who could be his match. Storm Fist. Yu Hu let out a low and cold growl. Instantly, he clenched his fist and bent his elbow. Profound qi rapidly condensed on his fist, and in the end, he fiercely smashed it towards Du Xiaofu's chest. The profound qi on his fist contained a strong wind that shook the air, and an invisible force whistled, blowing the dust on the street into a small storm. Qi Law. Under everyone's astonished gazes, Qi Hu's storm fist was clearly about to land on Du Xiaofu's body, but for some reason, it deviated a little, narrowly brushing past Du Xiaofu's body. Bang! A low and deep sonic boom rang out. It was so fast that before anyone could see it clearly, Qi Hu's body had already been sent flying. He landed heavily on the street more than 10 meters away, causing the entire ground to tremble. Fast as lightning, clean and efficient and extremely powerful. Pft! Qi Hu spat out a mouthful of blood. He struggled to stand up, but failed several times. He raised his head to look at Du Xiaofu, his face filled with shock, and his eyes filled with fear. I told you that you would meet a bloody disaster today. I didn't lie to you. After Du Xiaofu finished speaking to Qi Hu, he looked at Yi Zijin and said, Miss Yi, I don't think you're in the mood to stroll around today, so I'll take my leave first. With that, Du Xiaofu swaggered off. Yi Zijin looked at the tall and straight figure, her eyes flickering, but she did not say anything else. Looking at Du Xiaofu's back as he left, the onlookers on the streets were still in a daze. However, everyone knew that the rumored foolish young master of the Du family was definitely not a fool. On the contrary, in the entire younger generation of the Stone City, there were not many people who could compare to him. Brother Hu, how are you? Several youths regained their senses and hurriedly ran over to help Qi Hu up. Qi Hu's face was deathly pale. He originally thought that the rumored fool would not be a match for him, who was now in the Xiantian stage, but he did not expect that the result would be such an embarrassing and miserable defeat. Du Xiaofu, I'll definitely make you pay for this with interest. Looking at the gradually disappearing figure, the fear in Qi Hu's eyes slowly dissipated, but it was replaced by a venomous look. There will be more chapters later, Xiao Yu continues to write. Chapter 53. In the afternoon, rumbling noises continued to be heard from the back mountain of the Du residence. It only stopped when night fell. The back mountain of the Du family was continuous, and usually no one would go to the depths of the back mountain. Therefore, Du Xiaofu was at ease to practice his body transformation technique in the back mountain. Besides, there was also the king's scaled demon tiger. Once someone approached, they would be immediately discovered. After nightfall, Du Xiaofu continued to sit cross-legged in the back mountain and practiced. Night shrouded the stone city. In a group of magnificent buildings not inferior to the Du family, in the depths of a courtyard, several figures were standing in a room. Among them was a pale and ashen-faced teenager. He was the one who was taught a lesson by Du Xiaofu during the day, Qi Hu. Qi Hu was defeated in 2 moves. After enduring for 10 years, it seems that this time the Du family has a strong opponent. A young man who looked somewhat similar to Qi Hu but was 1 or 2 years older than him opened his mouth and said softly with a faint smile on his face. Big brother, you must avenge me. Qi Hu's face was full of grievance and anger. He would never let Du Xiaofu go. Qi Long looked at Qi Hu and sighed, second brother, next time stay away from Yi Zijin. She is not suitable for you. Big brother, what do you mean? Not suitable for me? Are you saying that she is suitable for you? Qi Hu looked at Qi Long with displeasure. Second brother, your injuries today are proof that Yi Zijin is not someone you can subdue. Qi Long's expression did not change much. The corners of his mouth curved slightly. Looking at the empty moonlight outside, he said softly, that woman is not simple. This is a test. What test? Qi Hu asked doubtfully. Nothing. You just stay at home and heal. Qi Long said. Then what about Du Xiaofu? Are we just going to let him go? Is our Qi family afraid of him? Qi Hu said angrily. He absolutely could not let Du Xiaofu go. He said to a burly middle-aged man behind Qi Long, "Father, say something. Am I going to be beaten up for nothing?" The tall and sturdy middle-aged man was none other than the current patriarch of the Ran clan, Ran Qingsong. He looked at Ran Chua and asked, "Long He, what do you think?" Hearing this, Zhuo Long said, "Father, that Du Xiaofu seems to be a few years younger than second brother. If we go to the Du family, I'm afraid it will be detrimental to our Zhuo family's reputation. If word gets out, it's inevitable that people will say that our Zhuo family can't beat the Du family and that we're going to look for trouble after losing. So you're saying that we should just let it go?" Yun Qingsong's expression didn't change much. "No." Zhuo Long smiled faintly. "We're going to the Du family, and we're going to the Du family in a lively manner. We have to put on a show, lest some people pay special attention to our Zhuo family. Besides, I also want to meet Du Xiaofu. I want to know what kind of person he is, to be able to endure for 10 years. Good. Let's go to the Du family and teach that Du Xiaofu a lesson." Ma Yinghu sneered. Go and treat your injuries. You're not allowed to leave the house for half a year." Yun Qingsong looked at Ma Yinghu and said in a deep voice. "Yes, father." Ma Yinghu didn't dare to say anything else. He seemed to be extremely afraid of his father and could only resentfully drag his heavily injured body away. Sigh. Gazing at Ma Yinghu's back, Yun Qingsong sighed softly and said, "Disappointing, disappointing." He was used by someone and he didn't even know it. Zhuo Long smiled at Yun Qingsong and said, "Father, second brother is still immature. Besides, that girl Yi Zijin is indeed not ordinary. Second brother did not suffer unjustly this time. It will be beneficial for him in the future." Yun Qingsong's gaze fell on Zhuo Long and said, "If you can subdue that girl, things will be much simpler in the future." "I will do my best." Zhuo Long smiled. "Some things should be over soon. Sure City has been peaceful for too long," Yun Qingsong said. Gazing at the moonlight outside the door, Zhuo Long softly muttered, "A storm is brewing. The sky is about to change. Isn't the Yi family already unable to endure it?" The next morning, the faint golden light around Du Xiaofu's body receded. He exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and stopped his breathing and cultivation. The Golden Rock's body refinement method is truly mysterious. Its cultivation method is also extremely powerful. Feeling the profound energy in his body becoming more and more abundant and his body becoming more and more powerful, Du Xiaofu's face revealed a smile. After tidying up, he left the back of the mountain. "Young Master Xiaofu, it's not good. Many people from the Ma family have come looking for you aggressively. The patriarch wants you to go over." Just as Du Xiaofu returned to the backyard, the new steward of the backyard hurriedly ran over, panting and looking nervous. "The Ma family." Du Xiaofu's expression was extremely calm. He said, "You can leave first. I will be there in a moment." The king-scaled demonic tiger rubbed against Du Xiaofu's robe. When it heard that there were people looking for trouble, it seemed to want to go as well to Du Xiaofu. "You don't have to join in the fun," Du Xiaofu said to the king-scaled demonic tiger. "Roar roar." The king-scaled demonic tiger let out 2 deep roars. It seemed to be protesting against Du Xiaofu for looking down on it. Unfortunately, Du Xiaofu ignored the king-scaled demonic tiger. He turned and entered the courtyard, not immediately going to the front hall. After Du Xiaofu took a bath and tidied up his clothes, he went to the front hall and saw the Sea Clan's people. There were quite a few of them and all of them were very aggressive. Their auras were also not weak. Each and every one of them was red in the face and ears. It seemed like they had some dispute with the Du clan's people. "Greetings, first uncle and second uncle." Du Xiaofu went forward and bowed to Du Jinwu and Du Zhixiong. His eyes swept across the Ma family and paid more attention to a burly middle-aged man and a thin young man sitting at the head of the table. "Xiaofu, sit down first. Someone said that you injured Ma Hu yesterday. Is this true?" Du Jinwu gestured for Du Xiaofu to sit down and asked. Du Xiaofu nodded and sat next to second uncle Du Zhixiong. He nodded and said, "Yesterday, I taught a lesson to someone called Ma Hu. That person scolded me, so I beat him up." Du Jinwu, you heard it right? This is the person who injured my son. You have to give me an explanation today. Ma Qingsong angrily glared at Du Jinwu with an unrelenting expression. Ma Qingsong, you heard it too. Who told your son to scold my nephew? He deserved to be beaten up. Du Zhixiong stepped forward bravely and glared at Ma Qingsong. My son can't beat him, so I'll step in. Your Ma family is really protective of their children. Du Zhixiong, what do you mean? A Ma family elder gloomily glared at Du Zhixiong and shouted. I mean what I said. If you don't accept it, then the Ma family can start a war with my Du family. Du Zhixiong slammed the table and stood up. His Xian Qi surged and he didn't hold back at all. His nephew naturally couldn't be bullied. Let's start a war then. My Ma family isn't afraid. Many experts of the Ma family said angrily. Let's start a war then. How dare you bully us at our door? Do you think my Du family is easy to bully? The experts of the Du family in the hall were also furious. They didn't back down in the face of the Ma family. The reason why the Du family could rise in Stone City in such a short period of time was because of the unity of all the clansmen. They didn't hesitate in the face of external enemies. Du Xiaofu looked at his second uncle, who slammed the table and stood up, and his heart was once again filled with warmth. As for the experts of the Du family, many of them were against him yesterday, but today, they were united in the face of external enemies. This made Du Xiaofu's expression change slightly. Finally, his gaze fell on the people of the Ma family. Ma Qingsong glared at Du Jinwu and said, Du Jinwu, does your Du family not want to give me an explanation today? Explanation? Your Ma family came to my Du family in such an aggressive manner. This is clearly not putting my Du family in your eyes. If your Ma family wants to find an excuse to start a war, my Du family will accompany you. Du Jinwu sat upright and shook his long sleeve, not backing down an inch. Good Du family. Let's wait and see. Ma Qingsong slammed the table and stood up. He said to the people of the Ma family behind him, let's go. I won't see you out. Du Jinwu leaned against the back of the chair without any trace of politeness. I'm Ma Hu's brother, called Ma Long. You're Du Xiaofu. Ma Long stood up and stood in front of Du Xiaofu. In the noisy hall, everyone's gaze fell on Ma Long and Du Xiaofu. What's wrong? Your brother can't win, so you want to fight as a family? Du Xiaofu raised his eyes and looked at Ma Long. Ma Long smiled at Du Xiaofu and said, I heard that you've been an idiot for 10 years. It seems that the rumors aren't reliable. My second brother is disappointing. If he loses, then so be it. It's good that he's been taught a lesson. There's still plenty of time in the future, don't you think so? Ma Long's words implied that he was secretly calling Du Xiaofu an idiot. Indeed, rumors stop with the wise. Du Xiaofu's gaze was indifferent, but his words were sharp. Everyone naturally understood that Du Xiaofu's words meant that whoever believed that he was an idiot was an idiot. Smart people naturally wouldn't believe it. Ma Long looked at Du Xiaofu and his expression changed slightly. He smiled and said, I heard that you have a good relationship with Yi Zijin of the Yi family. But it seems that Ma Hu and Miss Yi have a better relationship. Don't you know that as his brother? Du Xiaofu said softly. Ma Long smiled and looked at Du Xiaofu. He said, it won't be long before the Wu family of Stone City holds a grand meeting. The younger generation will all participate. I hope to see you at that time. I won't necessarily go. Du Xiaofu said. Goodbye. Ma Long smiled and turned to leave. The group of Ma family members also turned and left with hatred. This Ma family is really shameless. Watching the Ma family members leave, the Du family experts in the hall cursed. Xiaofu, come with me to the study. Du Jinwu stood up and looked at Du Xiaofu. His expression didn't change much, and then he turned and entered the inner hall. Don't worry about the Ma family. Our Du family is not afraid of them. Du Zhixiong patted Du Xiaofu's shoulder and said with a smile, I heard that you defeated the Xiantian stage Mahu in 2 moves. You've brought glory to our Du family. Good job. Second uncle, I don't have that kind of strength. It was Mahu who wanted to frame me and made me fall. Du Xiaofu wouldn't admit it. Yesterday, he had said in front of the Du family that he couldn't defeat Du Hao's Xiantian stage cousin. So he couldn't admit it no matter what. After saying this, he hurriedly followed his uncle into the inner hall. Chapter 54. Yeah, that's not right. There's something fishy going on here. Is Du Xiaofu really that strong? I heard that Yuan Shihu has reached the Xiantian stage. Could it be that Du Xiaofu has already? Many of the Du family members heard this and immediately reacted. Then, many of them looked stunned. Defeating Yuan Shihu in 2 moves was definitely not something an ordinary Xiantian stage cultivator could do. In the study, Du Jinwu sat upright and looked at Du Xiaofu who had just walked in. He gestured for him to sit aside and said, Xiaofu, regarding yesterday's matter, I want to ask your opinion. That Yuan Shihu scolded me, so I beat him up. That's all. Du Xiaofu replied. In front of his uncle, he was much more well-behaved. So what if Yuan Shihu beat him up? It's no big deal. Our Du family isn't afraid of the Yuan family. We won't bully others, but we definitely won't lose out either. Don't you agree? Du Jinwu rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu. He felt that in these 10 years, he really didn't understand this nephew of his. Yes, uncle is right. I definitely won't let others bully me in the future. Du Xiaofu smiled. Alright, there are no outsiders here. Tell me about yesterday's matter. Du Jinwu glared at Du Xiaofu, his expression turning serious. Actually, I don't know what happened, but I feel that the Yi family came yesterday, and the Yuan family came today. Things are a little strange. Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment, then said to Du Jinwu. Du Jinwu's eyes revealed a look of surprise, and he said to Du Xiaofu, Tell me, how is it strange? The Yi family was too friendly. Although that Yi Zijin is young, she's obviously a cold and arrogant girl, but she was overly friendly to me. On the other hand, the Si family was too pretentious. They said that they were here to cause trouble, but in the end, they left after making a few noises. It was obvious that they weren't really here to cause trouble. Also, that Chuolong shouldn't be simple. Even if the other members of the Chua clan didn't think of it, I believe that Chuolong must have known. Although I injured Chuahu, we are still juniors. The Chua clan came looking for trouble in such a grandiose manner, but they still came. Even if they came, it was just for show. Du Xiaofu paused for a moment. His eyes flickered as he looked at Du Jinwu and said, There must be something wrong when things are out of the ordinary. Therefore, these things don't seem normal. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Du Jinwu's eyes flickered. Suppressing the astonishment in his heart, he continued to ask Du Xiaofu, Good boy, it seems that I have indeed underestimated you. Tell me, why did you fight yesterday? Was it just because Qi Hu scolded you? He. Du Xiaofu smiled and said, That girl from the Yi clan was too enthusiastic about me. I didn't want to disappoint her enthusiasm, so I decided to be a little more high profile. That girl is not simple at such a young age. Du Jinwu said softly. Then, he looked at Du Xiaofu and said softly, Things are indeed not simple. The Stone City has been peaceful for so long. I'm afraid that it is about to change. The Yi clan is already the first to lose control. Do you want to know why? I'm a little curious. Although Du Xiaofu was a little confused, he was also quite curious. Du Jinwu continued to ask Du Xiaofu, The Stone City is on the edge of the Barbarian Beast Mountain Range. There are many demonic beasts in the Barbarian Beast Mountain Range, and there are many kings among them. However, no demonic beast experts have ever invaded the Stone City. Even in the previous beast tide, no demonic beast entered the stone city. Do you know why? Du Xiaofu shook his head. During the two beast tides a while ago, the ground shook and everything was destroyed. However, there really weren't any demonic beasts that entered the stone city. Because the stone city has a demonic beast guarding it. Du Jinwu said. When he mentioned the demonic beast, his eyes changed. A demonic beast guarding the stone city? Du Xiaofu also heard about this for the first time. In these years, the kings of the demonic beasts in the barbarian beast mountain range did not dare to set foot in the stone city. The forces outside the stone city that wanted to touch the stone city did not dare to act rashly. Everything is because of the demonic beast guarding the stone city. It is a thunder lion that is rumored to have reached the level of a beast lord. At the mention of the thunder demonic lion that guarded the stone city, Du Jinwu's eyes also rippled with yearning. The level of a beast marquis was equivalent to the level of a human martial marquis. That level, to him, was also an existence that was unattainable. The level of a beast lord. Du Xiaofu's eyes suddenly lit up. The level of a beast lord was even higher than the level of a spiritual pulse. A demonic beast that was even stronger than a king-scaled demonic tiger was extremely powerful. There was actually such a terrifying existence in the stone city. It is said that a few hundred years ago, an ancestor of the Yi clan accidentally saved an injured thunder lion. From then on, the thunder lion stayed in the Yi clan and stayed in the stone city. It also intimidated the demonic beasts at the edge of the barbarian beast mountain range. For many generations, the Yi clan has been sitting in the stone city and became the city lord. Du Jinwu said. I see. Du Xiaofu roughly understood. With such a strong demonic beast in the Yi clan, how could the other clans resist? Du Jinwu sighed and said, it is a pity that the thunder lion is already old and has not been able to improve in terms of cultivation. Its lifespan is nearing its end and it seems that it has not recovered from its injuries. This is also the reason why it has been staying in the Yi clan. Now that it is old and weak, in addition to its injuries, its aura is declining day by day. There is news that the thunder lion may die soon. There will be a day when the marquis-level beasts reach the end of their lifespan. Du Xiaofu sighed in his heart. There will be a day when the marquis-level beasts reach the end of their lifespan. The lifespan of humans is shorter than that of demonic beasts. Comparing a marquis-level cultivator to a marquis-level cultivator, the marquis-level cultivator would definitely have a longer lifespan. If you want to go against the heavens and seize life, you have to continuously break through the shackles. Unfortunately, on the path of cultivation, every breakthrough is extremely difficult. The higher the level, the harder it is to reach the heavens. For a demonic beast at the beast marquis level, especially a demonic beast like the lightning demonic lion, the bones within its body are priceless treasures. Its essence blood is also priceless treasures. Once it dies, it will be enough to change the weather in the stone city. Over the years, countless gazes have been fixed on the Yi family and the lightning demonic lion. Du Jinwu's eyes trembled. For existences at the level of beast marquis, their bones and blood essence were enough to cause people to go crazy over them. All these years, those clans had been preparing and waiting. If anyone could obtain the treasures left behind by the Thunder Lion King, the benefits would be unimaginable. Once the Thunder Lion dies, I'm afraid the Yi clan will not be able to hold on. The Tai clan, the Bai clan, the Qin clan and the other clans will definitely not let go of such an opportunity. Du Xiaofu was shocked. Thinking back to the battle between the Purple Flame Demonic Phoenix and the Golden Rock, the Sky Snake Sect, the Mysterious Underworld Sect and the Mysterious Talisman Sect all participated in the battle. This time, if the Thunder Lion died, how could the other clans in the Stone City let go of such an opportunity? The Yi clan would definitely not be able to take all the benefits for themselves. That's right, the Yi clan also knows that once something happens to the Thunder Lion, the Yi clan will not be able to hold on to the benefits left behind by the Thunder Lion. Therefore, the Yi clan is probing to see who exactly wants to fight for it. Du Jinwu said. Du Xiaofu frowned and said, I understand now. No wonder the Yi clan is so friendly towards me. They want to pull the Du clan to their side and then find out who wants to deal with the Yi clan the most. The Yi clan has already started to make arrangements. Du Junwu looked at Du Xiaofu, his eyes filled with shock again, and said, "That's right, the Yi clan has already started to make arrangements. Last time, when Yi Baolin came, he had already secretly sent a message to me, saying that he wants to join hands with the Du clan. When the time comes, he will not forget about the benefits of the Thunder Lion." Uncle agreed. Du Xiaofu raised his head and asked, "Can we not agree?" Du Junwu's mouth curved into a bitter smile. The Yi clan's methods are indeed brilliant. Du Xiaofu knew that the Du clan had no choice but to agree. If the Du clan did not agree, it would be the same as telling the Yi clan that the Du clan also wanted to deal with the Yi clan. But now that the Du clan and the Yi clan were so close, the other three clans would definitely be wary of the Du clan. 1 month from now, the younger generation of the 5 great clans will compete. At that time, the situation might change, and my Du clan will probably be unable to stay out of it. We've already been dragged into this vortex. Du Junwu sighed, and his face was filled with worry. Uncle, what does this have to do with the competition between the younger generation of the 5 clans? Du Xiaofu did not quite understand. The Yi clan has been sitting in the Stone City for many generations, but outside the Stone City, there are many forces that have always wanted to touch the Stone City. Therefore, the Yi clan cannot fight alone. Although we have the Thunder Lion, the other clans will naturally have complaints. Du Junwu explained, therefore, since a long time ago, the Yi clan has arranged for the competition between the younger generation of the various clans once every few years. The strongest one will be able to enter the lightning pool to cultivate. At that time, only the 4 great clans participated, and my Du clan only had the qualifications to participate more than 10 years ago. With regards to this, Du Xiaofu was not unfamiliar. It was said that although the Du clan had always been in the Stone City, their official rise began more than 10 years ago, and they had not been in the 5 great clans for long. As for the lightning pool, he had never heard of it before. Curiously, he asked, "What is the lightning pool?" Du Junwu said, "The lightning pool is owned by the Yi clan. It is said that it can only be opened once every few years. There is a small amount of the Thunder Lion's blood essence inside. Cultivating in the lightning pool will allow you to obtain lightning to forge your body, which is very beneficial to your cultivation. If you can cultivate in the lightning pool, your future will be limitless." In the past few years, every time the younger generation of the major clans competed against each other, the winner would always be the Yi clan. Hence, the Yi clan's strength has always been stronger than the other clans. It's a pity that our Du clan hasn't risen for a long time, so no one from our Du clan has entered the lightning pool yet. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered. Lightning body refinement. He had practiced the cultivation method of the golden rock. If he added this lightning body refinement, would the effects be even better? Maybe there would be other benefits. After all, the lightning lion was a terrifying existence at the level of a beast lord. Chapter 55. Du Junwu paused for a moment, then continued, "The Yi family opening up the Thunder Pool is partly to appease the dissatisfaction of the other families by handing over some of the benefits brought by the Thunder Lions, and also to intimidate the other families. In the past few years, the younger generation of the Du family has always won. To the other families, this is a form of intimidation, causing the other families to not dare to act rashly. 1 month later, when the younger generation of the 5 families compete, you have to find a way to enter the Thunder Pool. I still have injuries on my body, I'm afraid it will be difficult to win." Du Xiaofu said. "Stop talking nonsense, you are much more cunning than your father. I really don't know how our 3rd brother could have such a cunning son. Don't think I don't know that Du Hao's cousin, that Imperial Knight, was clearly injured by you and couldn't bring himself to leave the Du family overnight. Do you really think I don't know?" Du Junwu glared at Du Xiaofu. The difference between this little brat and their 3rd brother's one-track mind was too great. He. Du Xiaofu smiled apologetically. It looked like his eldest uncle already knew. As a family, there was naturally no need to keep up the pretense. Be serious, don't think I don't know what you are planning. Du Jinwu rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu and said, some of the elders in the clan aren't stupid. I've discussed it with the elders in the clan. So long as you participate in the competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans and win, then the violet Qi Yang scripture will be given to you to cultivate. That's it? Du Xiaofu's eyes flashed. If he had been able to obtain the purple Qi Chaoyang scripture back then, it would naturally have been a joyous occasion. But now that he had already practiced the cultivation method of the golden rock, Du Xiaofu naturally did not have any expectations for the purple Qi Chaoyang scripture. What else do you want? Last time, you snatched the blood essence of the violent stone demon wolf and the foundation establishment pill from Du Hao. Isn't that enough? Du Jinwu rolled his eyes again at Du Xiaofu. Fine, I will try my best. Du Xiaofu helplessly nodded. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to obtain any other benefits. Although he didn't have any expectations for the purple Qi Chaoyang scripture, he still had to take a look at the thunder pool. Combined with his own body transformation method, he might be able to take another step forward. Are these spiritual herbs and materials that can only be used by talisman masters what you want? Du Xiaofu took out a large wooden box from the study room and opened the lid. Inside the box were elixirs and some materials that only spirit talisman masters could use. They were very expensive and not something that ordinary people could afford. Moreover, these were all materials that only spirit talisman masters could use. He looked at Du Xiaofu doubtfully and said, this was sent by Du Ping early in the morning. He said that you bought these materials. That's what I want. I want to try and see if I can become a talisman master. Du Xiaofu nodded his head. He had already expected that the Du family would find out about his purchase of elixirs from the Du family store. Hence, there was nothing to hide. You want to become a talisman master? Du Jinwu looked at Du Xiaofu in surprise. He had already asked someone to check Du Xiaofu's spiritual roots. It was impossible for him to become a talisman master. I just want to try. It doesn't matter if I succeed or not. Du Xiaofu said. Du Jinwu looked at Du Xiaofu. After a long time, his expression gradually eased and he said softly, if you really want to try, our Du family store has also invited a talisman master to refine elixirs. Although he is only a 2-star talisman master, I believe that if I go and talk to him, he will be able to give you a few pointers. A talisman master is not something that can be achieved by immersing yourself in exploration. Thank you, uncle, but I don't need it for the time being. I will try it myself first. Du Xiaofu knew that there was a 2-star talisman master in the Du family store. Previously, the talisman master had treated his illness. Although he was only a 2-star talisman master, which was equivalent to a warrior of the Xiantian level, because of the special characteristics of a talisman master, even his uncle had to be polite to him. It was said that his status in the Du family was extremely high. However, according to Zhen Qingquan's words, if a 5-star talisman master was not a fart in front of him, then a 2-star talisman master was not even worth mentioning. Therefore, Du Xiaofu planned to see if Zhen Qingquan had tricked him or not. Alright, you can decide for yourself. However, in a month's time, there will be a competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans. Don't delay it. This time, I'm afraid that Du Hao and Du Yan won't be able to gain any advantage. Your brother and sister missed the competition between the 5 great clans 3 years ago and have been away all this time. Therefore, this time, we can only rely on you. Du Jinwu said seriously. He did not say anything more about the talisman master. At that time, Du Jinwu had abandoned his martial vein, but now he could practice. Perhaps there would be some miracles in the talisman master realm now. If a talisman master really appeared in the Du family, it would be a great benefit for the whole Du family. Therefore, there were some things that he did not need to ask too much. Everyone had some secrets. It was normal for the 3rd brother's son to have some secrets. I will do my best. Du Xiaofu was grateful to his uncle. He knew that his uncle was good to him. The brother and sister mentioned by his uncle were his eldest uncle's daughter and second uncle's son. The two of them had been wandering outside since they were very young. Du Xiaofu had not seen them for a long time. He still remembered that when he was young, his eldest sister and second brother would often protect him. After chatting with his uncle for a while, Du Xiaofu picked up the wooden box and left. When he walked to the door of the study, Du Zhenwu called out to Du Xiaofu and said, "Xiaofu, this time in the other families, it is said that there are also extraordinary juniors. Several of them have stepped into the Xiantian stage. What level have you reached? Can you tell me so that I can know?" Du Xiaofu turned his head, smiled and said, "Thunder Pool, I will definitely go." As his voice faded, Du Xiaofu strode out of the study. The Thunder Pool was extremely beneficial for body cultivation. Naturally, he would not miss such an opportunity. This kid, what level has he reached? His words are so domineering. I can't see through him. Du Zhenwu was puzzled. He had always wanted to pry into Du Xiaofu's cultivation level, but strangely, he could not pry into it. It was as if there was no way to pry into it. "Father, you're back." Du Xiaofu carried the wooden box back to the courtyard. It was rare to see his unkempt drunkard father at home. However, he was still hugging a wine jug and lying on the rattan chair. "N." Du Tingxian only responded softly. He continued hugging the wine jug and leaning on the rattan chair, staring blankly into the sky. Du Xiaofu entered his room and put down the wooden box. From his Qianquan bag, he took out a newly bought wine jug and a few sets of clothes. He once again stood in front of his father and said, "Father, your wine jug must have been used for a long time. This is the new wine jug and a few sets of clothes I bought for you. When you have time, take a bath." N. Du Tingxian only responded softly. His gaze still staring blankly into the sky did not move. "Leave them here. I'm going out for a while. Don't drink too much wine." Du Xiaofu placed the newly bought sets of clothes beside the rattan chair. He looked at his father's face, which was half covered by his messy long hair, and then left the courtyard. After a long time, Du Tingxian moved. He picked up the clothes and wine jug on the side of the rattan chair and looked into the distance, his eyes rippling a little. Rumble. In the depths of the mountain behind the Du residence, another rumbling sound came. Du Xiaofu once again immersed himself in cultivation. At night, Du Xiaofu finally stopped. He sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. The king-scaled demon tiger had been watching from nearby without blinking. Night, the bright moon hung in the sky. What do you think about Du Xiaofu from the Du family? In front of the courtyard, Qiu Qingsong looked at his son and asked. Chuolong raised his head to look at the bright moon circling in the sky. His robe fluttered as he stood with his hands behind his back. He replied, "Father, don't you already have an opinion? Why are you still asking me?" Qiu Qingsong faintly smiled and said, that Du Xiaofu is not simple at such a young age. Chuahu's failure was not unjustified. He is indeed not simple. His strength is also not simple. His cultivation is unfathomable. The Bai and Qin families should be preparing as well. Looks like I should also go into seclusion this month. Otherwise, I really don't have much confidence. Chuolong lowered his head and smiled, but before that, I should think of a way to let the Bai and Qin families out. I can't just let them keep an eye on my Chua family. Only by encountering a strong opponent can you continuously improve. This is a good thing for you. Qiu Qingsong gazed in the direction of the Yi family in the Stone City. His eyes suddenly flashed as he said, "If I can obtain that huge treasure, then my future will truly be limitless. For the Chua family, for all of you, I will do my best."